You want me to do the motion? All right. Before we get started, for the clerk, motion to seal the minutes and note in the record there were no votes taken during executive session.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right, that passes. All right, welcome everyone. We're going to get things going here. Before we start the meeting tonight, we do have some interviews to conduct. We'll move through those rather quickly before we start at 7:30. We're going to go in the order listed on the agenda here. And for anyone who's interviewing tonight, whether it be a first appointment or reappointment, we just ask you to tell us a little bit about yourself, your interests, why you want to join, why you'd be a good committee member if you're not already on, and tell us what's going on if you've been following, and if you're on the board, tell us what's happening, any updates, challenges, successes. And with that said, we're just going to get right into it. First up, we have Ken Monroe looking to be reappointed to the Assessment Board of Review.
And I'm going to step away from the table. I've filed a recusal form. Mr. Monroe and I belong to Business Networking International together.
Ken, welcome. Good. And if you want to just click the button on the right so the microphone's on.
Okay, all set?
Yep.
All
The
right.
floor is yours.
The floor is mine. Oh, okay, don't have any questions. I've been on the board for a few years. I took Mark Archambault's spot. Gene Bouchard's a longtime friend of my family's. He convinced me to do the board. So I had been doing that for a while. It's kind of my way of giving back to the town a little bit. So I have continued on doing it on a year-to-year basis. So I got confirmed the one time. This is the only time I've had to come back, but I was asked to come back and be before you if you had any questions for me, or anything you need to know from me. I'm happy to answer anything for you.
Any questions from Ken?
Just what do you enjoy about serving on that board in particular?
Well, I was born into the real estate business, so it's been there. So it's something that I can do that I feel I couldn't do what you guys do for a good reason, but I do have the background in real estate, so it is a service that I can provide. I'm the only residential realtor that's on the board. We have a builder and we have an appraiser. So it's a good combination. And again, this is my community, and it's the best way that I know how to give back in this type of a role.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Thank you for your service, Ken.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Next up, we have Joshua Saunders looking to be appointed to the BPAC.
Hello, thank you for having me. Josh Saunders. I moved to Wakefield a little over a year ago, and I moved here specifically because it's a town where I could see myself biking and walking anywhere I need to go. I'm not dependent on a car whatsoever, and it's wonderful that the town provides that for me, and I'm hoping as a member of BPAC I would be able to help expand that and provide it walking and cycling as a secure and attractive option for anyone who would like that alternative.
Excellent. Any questions for Joshua?
Hey, Joshua.
Yeah.
Where are you from before?
So originally from Middletown, but I've moved around. I've been Watertown, Massachusetts, Lansing, Michigan, went to school in New Jersey, but most of my life has been in Rhode Island.
And Joshua, what do you think that you yourself would bring to the BPAC?
So I hope to bring the experience of someone who's cycling and walking every single day. So whether I'm going to the Commons, downtown on Main Street, Old Tower Hill Road, Peacedale, take Kingstown Road to Narragansett, I'm hoping that my experience taking those routes will provide insight to the council, to the committee.
Well, thanks for considering to serve for us. We appreciate it.
I like it. Thank you, Joshua, for your interest, and you should find out soon.
Great, thank you very much.
All right, next up, we got Kate Chirac looking to be appointed to the Conservation Commission.
Hi, thanks for having me, Kate Chirac. So I'd be a new member of the Conservation Commission. I've sat in on 2 meetings thus far. So I've worked in the conservation field for over 20 years. I'm originally from Rhode Island, but spent some time out west. I currently work for a global conservation organization. And the reason I'm interested in joining the commission is I'm really interested in devoting some of my time more locally, especially on conservation issues, rather than just focusing on global issues. So a lot of experience I worked with cattle ranchers in Colorado. I've worked outside of the United States as well, and so I really bring a collaborative approach to conservation matters, both looking at nature and people.
All right, thank you, Kate. Any questions? Your work experience will allow you to be effective right from the get-go, which we love, so that's a good thing.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Michael Gagus, looking to be reappointed to the Economic Development Committee.
It's a tough act to follow. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the invite. I'm here to ask for your support to continue in the Economic Development Committee. I did want to make a few quick remarks, if that's okay. First of all, I wanted to thank you, the staff, all the people in this town that have made us feel welcome. We know we're newcomers. We've been here for 6.5 years. We're thinking of lobbying for the 25 years of vacation time that we put in to maybe get added to the but there's probably no point because we'll still be newcomers. We understand that. Despite the fact that things are pretty intense at the federal level, I'm really optimistic about South Kingstown. We've got a lot of things going really well. Including the Tower Hill project and the Wakefield Elementary and the affordable housing and the high school and all those things. We are firing on a lot of cylinders here, and it's going to pay off. This is the investment phase, right? And that's going to pay us dividends down the road. So I was hoping that we would just be able to coast on the Economic Development Committee, and it's free advice, so it's a pretty low bar. You don't have to work too hard to, you don't have to listen to us, right? But the members want me to reiterate the mission and the goals that we have, and so that we can remain true to those, but we can also explain to people that economic development is a good thing and it provides a lot of benefits to our citizens. If you approve Susan and I tonight, we are still down 2 members, and we've got a really good mix. People travel a lot. It's hard to get a quorum. We definitely could use 2 female members if you have any recommendations there. A little more diversity would definitely be a good thing. If there are any questions for me?
Any questions for Michael?
Okay.
Well, thank you for your service, Michael. We know you'll be at all the meetings, our meetings, so we'll continue to see you.
That's right.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Michael.
Susan Marcus, you're going to be reappointed to the Economic Development Committee.
Good evening. Thank you. I am Susan Marcus, and I am asking to be reappointed to the Economic Development Committee. I am the longest serving and the only woman on the committee at the moment. So as Mike said, it would be nice if you could help us find some other, 2 other victims. I'm very keen to stay. Well, first of all, my background, I've spent 25 years at the World Bank, so I know a little something about economic development. And I'm happy to say that I think the Economic Development Committee has moved from being sort of an extension of Joe Veely's chamber to being something that has a fuller understanding of what economic development might be. It's a very good committee at the moment. There are lots of new, young men on the committee. And so I'm keen to stay on for 3 more years. That might be the end for me. I'm getting pretty old, but I'd like to stay on for these 3 years because I think we're really at a moment when there's a good synergy, a good mix of people, and I think we can advise you when you ask and even when you don't, and so I would enjoy staying on.
All right, thank you, Susan. Any questions?
Thank you for your service on the committee, and we will do our best to try to help fill those gaps in that you were missing on the committee, and continuing to break down the silos in the business community and everywhere will be beneficial for everyone in South Kingstown. So, thank you.
Well, that's one thing I didn't explain. A part of my notion of what economic development is requires that we understand what our assets are and understand how those assets, even if they seem to be disparate or separate, how we can bring them together and get the best out of all of those things by looking across all of them. So we came to you some time ago to talk about the park, and our notion there was that the park and the river and Main Street were three really important assets, and the more we understand those three things as interconnected, the more you can get a developmental impact out of that.
Thank you.
Oh.
I wanted to thank you because you often attend other meetings and participate, and you're very much an intelligent voice of reason in a lot of different meetings where you've come to the housing boards and
Yes.
commission meeting, you participate in Saugatucket, so I recognize that you need a team of people, so but I just want to recognize that you are an incredible asset, that you participate and are so engaged, and you don't just go to the one meeting a month, you're at other meetings, and you have a deep base of knowledge.
I'm glad, thank you. I'm glad you see that as a positive thing.
So even if people disagree, I think the conversation gets everybody to a different place by the diversity of ideas that everyone brings. So,
Yes. I grew up. I'm a daughter of a political scientist. So discussion is a very important thing. You don't get to good decisions if you don't talk about things. If you don't have some way of exchanging ideas.
I totally agree with you. I
Yes.
think blindly accepting whatever it is and not trying to look at it from all
Yeah.
angles. I appreciate that about you. Thank
Good.
you.
Well, thank you, Deborah.
Thank you, Susan. Next up, we have Barry Gross, looking to be reappointed to the Waterfront Advisory Commission.
Hi, folks. Thanks for having us here tonight. I have a background, grew up in South County whole life, grew up on Salt Pond. My work experience, I was a commercial fisherman for 10 years. I am a real estate developer, I'm a real estate broker, and I'm also the owner of Northwick Boatyard in Wickford, Rhode Island. So I think I bring a bit of a diverse background to the Waterfront Commission. Many of the issues we've dealt with, I deal with in my business life up in the North Kingstown area as well. So I think sometimes a little bit different perspective. Oftentimes I'm asked, how are you handling this in North Kingstown? And sometimes I can speak to that. So some of our successes for many, many years, we planned on redoing the boat ramp down in Marina Park, and it's done. We're still working out some bugs, but that's the nature of the business. We have more plans to do some improvements in Marina Park, and I think it's going to make it I think we have some ideas that's going to help the park to work better for the boating community in South Kingstown. So we're going to work with the Rec Commission to try to come up with some processes that are just going to help us this summer. So we've got a lot of things to do. The other thing is waterfront access is always a hot button issue. And, we've identified and we hope to memorialize many of the right-of-ways throughout the town. And it's a true committee job because, waterfront access, it's always under assault. And we need to make sure that the public's right to the water is protected. So we have more things we're going to do, and I look forward to hopefully being a part of that.
All right, thank you, Barry.
Barry, you're a true asset to our town, and the work that you and the Waterfront Committee do in preserving our right to the beach, our public access is amazing, and thank you for doing that work. Is there anything that this council could do or that you're working on that we should be aware of, that we can start maybe diving into in the future?
We have a planning session coming up with some stuff, but the town council and town have been very, very good. We do have a new boat coming, which is sorely needed. The harbor master will, hopefully be able to retire his old Boston whaler, and he's going to have something that's going to probably take him into the next 30 years. And, our town, the grants that we received and the taxpayers should be lauded for that.
Thanks, Barry.
Thank you, Barry.
All right?
All right, last up, not on the agenda tonight, but I believe he is here, Ken Tetzner, looking to be reappointed to the Economic Development Committee. All right, Ken may not be here, so we're going to move right into the meeting. We're going to get things underway here. It's a little after 7:30. Today is Monday, March 10. First order of business, as always, is the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. We have the Girl Scouts here tonight, so I want to invite you all up and lead us with the Pledge of Allegiance. So come right on up.
Stand right up there and do the pledge, and then you'll hand them.
We're going to start on you guys. So whenever you're ready.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Awesome job. All right, next on the agenda is the land acknowledgement statement, which I will read. The town of South Kingstown pays homage to the indigenous people and land on which the town is now located. Let this acknowledgement serve as a reminder of our ongoing efforts to recognize, honor, reconcile, and partner with the Narragansett tribe whose land and water we benefit from today. Next, we have the roll call.
Council President McEntee.
Here.
Council Vice President Marin.
Here.
Councilmember Bergner.
Here.
Councilmember Wedgemont.
Here.
It is noted for the record that Councilmember Alley is absent.
Thank you. It's going to move us to item 5, approval of minutes of previous meetings.
Motion to approve items 5A and B.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. It's going to move us to item 6, the consent agenda.
Motion to approve items 6A, B, and C.
We have
Second.
a motion. We have a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. All right, this time we're going to move up new business item 10A, a resolution recognizing March 9 through March 15 as Girl Scout Week in South Kingstown. And I do have a proclamation that I want to read into the record and submit to the Girl Scouts. Whereas Wednesday, March 12, 2025, marks the 113th anniversary of Girl Scouts of the USA, founded by Juliette Gordon Low in 1912 in Savannah, Georgia. The Girl Scouts of Southeastern New England is one of 112 Girl Scout councils in the United States serving girls in the greater Rhode Island area. And whereas through Girl Scouting, girls grow in courage, confidence, character, and learn to make the world a better place. Whereas throughout its long and distinguished history, Girl Scouts, the preeminent organization for girls, has inspired millions of girls and women with the highest ideals of character, conduct, and patriotism. And whereas Girl Scouting takes an active role in increasing the interest and skill levels of today's youth in math, science, and technology careers and to fulfill our country's economic needs. And whereas through participation and community service and highest awards, every girl will learn that she can make a change for the better in her community. And whereas the Girl Scout cookie sale is the world's largest girl-led business, teaching financial literacy to girls of all ages. And whereas this year, in celebration of Women's History Month, the U.S. Mint will release a quarter in honor of our founder, Juliette Gordon Low. On March 24th, Girl Scouts celebrates this incredible contributions women have made throughout history, and we count Girl Scouts among them. Now, therefore, we, the Town Council of the Town of South Kingstown, do hereby proclaim the week of March 9th through March 15th, 2025 as Girl Scout Week in the Town of South Kingstown, and urge our citizens to support Girl Scouts in their endeavors. Yeah. All right. Quick picture. All right, we're now going to move to new business. Item 10B, a resolution adopting a citation congratulating Mary Jane Ostrich Baranowski on her 100th birthday as requested by Vice President Mike Marin. And May, I know you're here in the audience, so this one's for you.
Come on over to the microphone if you can. Or can we bring a microphone to her? Yeah. Oh, wow.
So Mary, I'm going to read the proclamation into the record. We're going to present it to you, and then if you wish to say any words, you're welcome to speak. I'm just going to go right into it now. Whereas Mary Jane Ostrich was born on March 25, 1925 in Utica, New York, and whereas on the 4th of July, 1946, Mary Jane married Edwin Baranowski after his completion of service in the U.S. Army in World War II, and they were happily married for 66 years until Edwin passed in 2013. And whereas together, Edwin and Mary Jane raised 4 children, Edwin, Bonnie, Marcia, and Michelle, and were later blessed with 2 granddaughters, Lauren, Burmester, and Genevieve Macaulay, and blessed again with 6 adored great-grandchildren. And whereas in 2018, Mary Jane moved to South Kingstown to live with her daughter, Bonnie. Whereas since becoming a resident of South Kingstown, Mary Jane has become a well-loved member of the community, where she is respected as a model and inspiration on how to age with grace, dignity, style, and humor. And whereas as a member of the greatest generation, Mary Jane was raised on the founding values of our country, including civic engagement, and passed those values on to her descendants, and continues to model those values. In fact, one of her first actions after moving to South Kingstown was to register to vote. And she is rightly proud of her record that in almost 80 years, Mary Jane has not missed a single opportunity to exercise her right and duty to vote in elections. Whereas when inevitably asked about her secret to such a long and still healthy life, Mary Jane credits her love of swimming and shoveling snow. And having lived in upstate New York for over 9 decades, she shoveled a lot of snow. Now, therefore, we, the Town Council, the Town of South Kingstown, congratulate Mary Jane Ostrich Baranowski on the occasion of her 100th birthday. So, Mary Jane, if you wish to say anything, feel free. We're happy you came.
A few
All I can
words.
say is thank you for the honor you've given me today, and it's going to stay with me as long as I stay here. I mean, being in Rhode Island, because it's my new home since I've been here, and I left New York State when I was 93, so I've been here since then, and I love it here and all the people. They're very, very nice.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I have this proclamation. I want to present it to you. Thank you for coming tonight.
Let the daughter get it.
Okay.
Mary Jane, happy birthday. We are so grateful in South Kingstown that you decided to move here. Thank you.
We don't have cake today, but we have cookies.
This is the first time that we've had, that I recall, recognizing someone for 100 years. I feel like really special. This is one of the more positive things that have happened in here. So we wish you all the best and happy birthday. Oh. Take care.
All right, we're now going to move over to the Town Manager's Report, Item A, regarding an update on the School Building Committee and School Facilities Project. Jim, go ahead.
Thank you, Council President. So this evening, we will be moving up 12A to the front because we have several representatives here representing the School Building Committee and an attorney as well who will give an update. So we will have Dylan Conley as well as Chris Spiegel come up to the microphone. Is Chris in the room? He was here a minute ago. And they will present a brief synopsis of what took place at the School Building Committee.
Good evening. Sorry. Good evening, Town Council members. Chris Spiegel with Left Field reporting. Prior to Attorney Conley giving an overview of the project labor agreement, we did just want to touch base on why a project labor agreement feasibility study was undertaken. So, as all of you know, we've been talking about for the last 2 years, the construction environment in Rhode Island is pretty dynamic. We have a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of schools that are being built in the same time. There's roughly about $2 billion worth of work all overlapping each other. Rhode Island is a small state. Because these jobs are all prevailing wage jobs, so whether or not, no matter who works on them, they are required to pay prevailing wage. It limits, in general, the amount of subcontractors who can work on a $150 million project. As such, in order to provide the most flexibility into a project, Left Field did discuss at the School Building Committee that a project labor agreement study should be undertaken. Now, a project labor agreement study is not a binding agreement. All it does is allow you, if you wanted to go a project labor agreement, you have to have a study. So let me kind of go back, because I kind of bungled that just a little bit. So you do not have to have a project labor agreement on your project. However, if you do want to have a project labor agreement, you must have a project labor agreement study. But if you have a project labor agreement study, you don't necessarily need to have a project labor agreement. Did that make sense? Yes. Okay. So our recommendation was to provide the most flexibility in this dynamic working environment for us to undergo a project labor agreement study. That study was performed after we reached out to several attorneys. We received one response back from Attorney Conley. Attorney Conley then underwent his project labor agreement study, which is coordination of looking at the current building conditions, our specific project, with labor markets and the conditions surrounding this project. A study has been completed, and it wasn't just, it was a school building committee as a general group decided this was the best way to go. It wasn't just myself who recommended. We also had a member of the school building committee who recently had a bit of a snafu with the project labor agreement study. Essentially, on one of their projects, they thought at the beginning that they did not need a project labor agreement. They weren't going to have a PLA on their project. As they moved forward through the project, it was determined that a project labor agreement was needed, and because of that, they then had to go backwards and actually perform a study before they could have a project labor agreement. So that was kind of an anecdote that helped provide a little bit of clarity on kind of what the purpose of having the study is that so you're prepared no matter which way the project goes, either to have a PLA or not to have a PLA, that you have that ability.
All right, Chris, how about, could you explain to us what is a project labor agreement? Why would we have one? And why would we opt to not do one? Can you walk us through that?
So I think the better person to answer that would be Attorney Conley, but I can answer it if you like, but Attorney Conley?
Thank you. A project labor agreement is, I think everyone is pretty familiar with a collective bargaining agreement. I think that's sort of an easy shorthand concept of how it would work. It ensures that there won't be work stoppages if there is a dispute, and then it also structures how union labor will participate in the site and guarantees access to labor. A project labor agreement study is a cost-benefit analysis of the any risks associated with going with a project labor agreement or the risks associated without going for a project labor agreement. So the study is a precursor to the contract in the sense that if there is not value to the municipality that outweighs the risks, then you wouldn't go forward with the contract itself. The contract itself then goes into place as a way to manage labor throughout the course of the project.
Okay. Now, you're an attorney, you deal with this on a regular basis. This is your specialty here. So you have been, hired to perform the analysis at this point?
Yes. The primary drive of my practice is land use and development. That includes a lot of analysis of construction. We also represent a series of municipalities and school districts generally. So because we have one foot in the world of government and governance and another foot in the world of land use and development, we're fairly uniquely qualified to give a description of whether or not a project labor agreement is in the best interest of a school committee or a municipality.
Have you already started to undergo the analysis here, the work that goes into this?
Yes, absolutely.
And how long does that take to complete?
So generally, the length of time to complete the study is driven a little bit on when the project becomes ripe and when we're hired. So sometimes we're waiting a while because we've been hired to do a study, but a project is slowing down or moving out a year. I can't really give a sound project labor agreement study analysis a year before or 2 years before a project is ready to go, because that would be an inaccurate or at least premature analysis of the market at that date and time, because we consider both the site itself and the immediate physical challenges, as well as macroeconomic environment issues and the Rhode Island labor market. So the study includes a pretty detailed analysis of every single type of trade or work that needs to be performed on the site and what we project to be the available labor for that trade during the time period that coincides with the construction projections. So we need to be pretty close to when you're ready to go in order for the quality and projections to be the most accurate.
All right. Now, some of the benefits and risks associated with project labor agreement would be, maybe more certainty as to, project completion, but it may be higher costs to do it.
Absolutely. So the number one concern that we always hear about a project labor agreement is there's an allegation that there's increased cost. This is a prevailing wage project, whether or not you go with union labor, whether or not you go with a project labor agreement. So that really eliminates the vast majority of the cost distinction between a PLA project and a non-PLA project. In addition, in this case, we've secured a letter from the trades in which they say they won't be seeking any double benefits. Without getting into the details, that basically eliminates any difference between a trade, a union, and a non-union shop performing the work. So there's no difference in labor costs. The next question is whether or not there's a difference in the available trades to perform the work. So impact on competition is something we spend a lot of time on in our study. What we find in Rhode Island is at the size of project that you're working on, you're going to have large firms performing that work. The large firms that would perform that work in the Rhode Island market are almost all union firms anyway. So there really isn't much of an impact on competition. And that does change from time to time based on what I'm hearing is available for labor in the field and the amount of projects we have going on. Chris just gave a fantastic analysis of the amount of demand for this work we're seeing in the Rhode Island area. But based on the timeline for this particular project and what we see in this area, we think that there will be no negative impact on competition.
All right.
That was leading into my next question, which is there an adverse impact on the timeline, on the schedule for building if you don't have that agreement?
No. So right now I don't see a negative impact from, I'm sorry, you said if you don't have that agreement.
You can change it to a positive if you want.
So a lot of times the concern is that a project labor agreement can artificially narrow the amount of trades available to do the work. What can be lost in that portion of the analysis is a guarantee of the labor that comes from having a project labor agreement. One of the things that we have been able to do on another project I worked on was we were falling behind schedule, and so we were able to reach into the trades and say, hey, we really need more people. Like this is not a normal project. School's going to start, right? So, we have kids moving on this date. We have teachers moving in on that date. And there's also a distinction in risk where a school project versus, say, a sewer project. If there's a delay at a sewer project, that's one level of community concern. If there's a delay at a school project, that's another level. Everyone's lives are really deeply and directly impacted. So I don't see a risk against it in this case, but there is some risk of not being able to tap those additional resources if you don't have one.
Thank you. I got a question for Chris, too.
I just wanted to also provide just a real kind of life example of what we're seeing here in the Rhode Island market. So this is a $150 million total project, including Curtis Corner. The mechanical, electrical, and plumbing amount of that package is roughly around 30% of your overall project costs. Let's just say that split, you're looking at a $10 million mechanical package or an HVAC package. There's 3 firms in Rhode Island that could really handle a package that big. What a project labor agreement in this case would allow us to do is make sure that we would have that labor along with the other very large projects that are also competing for that very small pool of subs, because there's Rhode Island licensure. It's not as easy as just grabbing a large firm from another state. So that's another kind of example of what we're looking at when we talk about competition. For a very large project like this, there's only a few firms that can actually handle the size of the project for their specialty. So we want to make sure that we're not on the outside looking in, and those subs are being absorbed by other contracts.
You mentioned in your introduction that there was another project where they didn't do the labor study first, but they went back and decided to do it later. Why did they decide to change?
I don't feel as comfortable talking about that. Wasn't the project manager for that job. That was held at URI. We can bring that up at the next school building committee, and we can talk about it at a public meeting then.
The follow-up question was going to be, going back and changing their minds cost time?
It absolutely did. So that was the anecdote that was told, is that we were ready to go, we were ready to get in the ground. A determination was made that it should go PLA, and then they had to take several steps backwards in order to keep moving forward, which stopped the project in its tracks at that time.
Thank you.
Hi, Deb.
Hey, so I just want to make sure I understand this whole piece of it. So Mr. Connolly has been hired to do the project labor study.
Mm-hmm.
And then who hired him?
It was hired by the school building committee, I believe, or the contract is through the town of South Kingstown, I believe. Luke? Yeah. Yeah.
So that, you know what my next question is going to be, who's paying? I think the contract is $999.
Yeah, so what Chris left out a little bit is, there was discussion on this probably 8 months ago, and we had originally gone out for 3 solicitations. 2 responded at that time. We held, because we were waiting on the project to burn a little bit more. We went back to the same 3 firms, and we only got 1 response after that. And that was under $10,000, which is under our bid threshold. Also, attorneys have a special exemption included in the state law. Given that it was such a low amount, and given that we wanted to get this going, we did award the $9,900 to get Connolly on board.
Okay. So he's been hired to do the study, and you're asking us now if we want to do the PLA? Is that the ask?
It's too premature for that, right? Study's not done.
Study's done. I have a copy of it here.
The study is done?
I have a copy of it here with me tonight.
Okay.
And I'm happy to sort of answer questions on it. It's our recommendation that a PLA is entered into. It's not drafted yet. The way the PLA works is it's a negotiation between the contractor and the trades. In this particular realm, specific to school construction projects, PLAs have become very common. To the point that I am not aware of a school construction project that does not have a PLA. So there's a market expectation associated with PLAs, which is also critical.
That's fine. I just want to go back. So he's already been paid to do the study, and we awarded the bid. Did that come out of the $150 million, or is that coming out of some other pocket?
So in fairness, all money is coming out of the town bucket right now because we're on cash flow, right? We haven't issued any of the bond anticipation notes, but when we do, this will be an eligible cost that'll be absorbed into that. That will be a reimbursable expense.
Okay, thank you. That was a little question we wanted. I understand. So you have your study right here. We don't have anything unless someone has it. So it's sure, of course. It's just, I see how thick this is. It's going to be a challenge to digest in minutes.
So when I asked you, what does your study here show you in terms of results, you didn't want to comment on it, but your study is complete, and these are the results. You said that the work is too far out, 2 years out. You didn't want to comment?
No. I was saying, you asked how long it takes? So I was responding to, we will finish a study when a project is ready to go. It's about timing and not how long it takes.
But what is this in front of us here?
It's the completed study.
So the study is complete?
Yes.
And your study should show us some results which would give us information as to whether to have a PLA or not?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
And it's a favorable recommendation.
Okay.
Dylan, thanks for coming down tonight from Providence.
Anytime.
I know that you are a competent attorney. What you in Providence, you've been seeing the changes of all of our schools consolidating and building new ones and
Yes.
from scratch and all that. South Kingstown has one high school.
Mm-hmm.
It's an extremely important project,
Yeah.
and recently we have been told, as you're aware, that the project is opening is delayed at this point, and they're trying their best to get us back onto a September opening. Would having a PLA delay that from getting back onto September 2027 opening?
It absolutely would not delay it.
Why not?
So it's a labor guarantee. So it basically enforces the fact that you will have as many tradespersons working on the job as you need.
Sure. And you've been speaking to Gilbane about this as well. They're in favor of that.
So Gilbane would be the actual signatory to the project labor agreement. It would be between Gilbane and the unions. Gilbane is already a signatory to several other unions. Gilbane does projects on PLAs. Gilbane does projects not on PLAs. I think, without speaking for Gilbane myself, I would think that they also see where the current market in Rhode Island is, the amount of work that's in Providence, Pawtucket, all these other places, and they want to make sure that South Kingstown has their choice of subs. The other thing that wasn't mentioned is it's correct that project labor agreements also protect against strikes. Is that correct?
Yes.
So that to your question about does this help our schedule or hurt our schedule, it would help in case of a strike, because in a project labor agreement, labor is guaranteed even in the case of a strike. But
And which labor unions would you be negotiating with, just for the public to know?
All the trades are individually signatories. It's managed through the trade through Greg Mancini and Mike Sabatoni, but it's the international.
So the AFL-CIO?
Yes, but so if you go to page 25 of the report, pages 25 and 26 is an individual union by union analysis on available trades and whether or not they would be capable to do the project. This is based on information that I get from from folks like Left Field, from other owners reps that I work with, companies like Gilbane and other construction firms I work with, and also other smaller construction firms that I do a lot of development work with. They give me a lot of information on what they're seeing in the field in terms of availability. And then also, specific to the school projects, we know when these large projects are coming online, right? So we can look down the road a little bit and see what other large-scale construction projects are going to be happening. So that's what is used to generate this portion of the report.
Dylan, I know you're a busy guy. You sit on many boards as well, and this project, to use your words, is ripe, right?
Yes.
Again, I think I would be in favor of a PLA agreement after reading this, of course. Right?
Yes.
You'll get to know everybody down here because they'll all be asking you questions.
No
so
problem.
just be prepared for that. And why'd you take this bid? Why did you take our solicited bid?
Sure. So our firm's been bidding on the project labor agreement work a lot recently in the past couple of years. We've done somewhere in the realm of maybe $1 billion worth of project analysis. I haven't been able to bill for it. That's the total cost of the projects. And it's a field that we care about. It's at the intersection of our school committee work and our land use and development work. And so having kind of a foot in both of those worlds, we think this is something that's critical to the communities that we're working in, and we think it's critical that it's done well, that we actually have a depth of understanding of what labor is available and what the construction demands are.
All right.
So this is part of the town manager's report, so we wouldn't be able to vote on it anyway at this juncture, but I just have a question. Is the ask in the future to approve, yeah, there you go, Kate, thank you. I love that you're reading my mind.
I'm like, I think I need to speak to that. Kate Mastandy, Chair of the School Building Committee. The ask tonight is not to, we're not asking for any decision to be made. We wanted to make sure that this was brought to you with ample time to digest this report so that in the future, when it is time to make a recommendation to you guys to either go with or not, PLA, you have all the information in front of you and you've been able to digest it, ask questions. Keep asking questions because I'm not 100% sure when it will come to ask for a decision one way or another. I'm assuming it's in the future, in their future, but it's not tonight. This was truly it was part of the manager's report so that we could bring it to you as soon as possible so that you get all the information and can ask all the questions you need over time. If that's helpful.
One last question. The 9,900, Luke, is that for the, the entire project or just for this?
Yeah, it's for that report, so they haven't billed a dime yet. Now that it's in, and once we vet it, then we'll pay the bill, but that's for the feasibility assessment.
Well, I think it may be premature to ask this, but I'd like to know how much it cost, Dylan. So,
The report,
this is 9,900, the report, right?
Yeah, what would the cost of your legal work going forward be, and what would that scope entail?
so we do all this work on a flat fee basis, so there wouldn't be any additional charges related to the report. If you did want to enter into a project labor agreement, that may actually have been in my bid as an optional add-on. I'm not 100% sure, but we would rebid on that. We do the project labor agreement negotiations on a flat fee and out basis as well. I want to say off the top of my head that we have it. 5,000. Off the top of my head would have been correct.
So you would prepare the agreement and negotiate with the unions at that cost, 5,000?
Yes, with communication with the owner's rep, the school building committee, as well as coordinating the negotiations between the trades and the contractor themselves. So we believe that the municipality should have a seat at the table and should be a driving force in that. And I think there's a lot of additional benefits that we can garner for the municipality by doing that. There's opportunities for local trades. There's opportunities for to develop learning experiences for current students or recent graduates through the Building Futures program. So there's a few things that we'd like to try to negotiate in on that. And one of the other areas this is an area of law that's actually evolving pretty quickly. The most famous decision is the Janus decision, which fundamentally altered the way that you could require or not require union dues be paid by people working on certain jobs. And so I am regularly butting heads with everyone on what is the right interpretation of the Janus decision and how you protect the municipality's interests and how you manage the historic expectations of the trades within the Rhode Island community.
All right.
One last question. So I forget who said Gilbane will be one of the signatories. Who else will, if we move forward with the project labor agreement, what's our role or Jim's role? I'm confused if Gilbane is signing off on it.
Yeah, so Gilbane signs it. It's between Gilbane and the unions, not between. But Gilbane would never enter into agreement with the unions unless we had the approval of the town. So it's not a little bit of a gray area, exactly, because Gilbane, although Gilbane signs the contract, we do so with your explicit approval as the town council.
Mm-hmm. And so by having a project, I just want to make sure this is, you were just at a couple school building committee meetings ago, but if we were to sign the agreement with the labor unions, you would have already vetted out, like the painters get $28.50 an hour, the Boilermaker gets, is it
Well,
like
that's
that
set by,
level of detail? Is
so that level of, so the prevailing wage rates are set. We don't negotiate the wage rates. Different unions might pay a little bit high, but that's the bottom out of it. So different firms might pay a little bit differently, but in terms of where the prevailing wage sets the actual wages. So that's outside of our negotiations.
It's the minimum that has to be paid per statute.
Correct.
Okay, I understand a little better.
And the flat fee of $5,000, that the scope of work would just be for the PLA agreement, correct?
Correct.
And nothing else beyond that?
Correct.
Okay. Thanks, Dylan. I really appreciate you coming down tonight.
Anytime.
Go ahead.
Just a quick question. You mentioned your other work with municipalities.
Mm-hmm.
What other either towns or school committees are you working with, your firm?
So on a regular basis, we are the Pawtucket School Committee, Johnson School Committee, Newport School Committee attorneys. We represent the municipalities of Westerly, Johnston. We've recently stopped representing East Providence, but I represented East Providence for a long time and did do this work while I was with them. Project labor agreements, we have also done work with Warwick, North Providence. That's in addition to all of the other municipalities I just identified. There's probably one or two that I'm forgetting off the top of my head, but we do this across the whole state on a regular basis.
No, I believe it. Just was curious about what school committees you worked with. So it was Pawtucket, Johnston,
In Newport.
and Newport. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Do I continue with the update?
Anything else from you, Chris? Go ahead, Jim.
If he could just give his update real quick on the school building committee, where we're at, where we're going, that should be short order, and then we're done with that part.
Of course. So we had a OPM report was sent to your attention on Friday. OPM report does go over some of the substantial work that's currently been going on, including the selection of a commissioning agent, which will be up a little bit later on the agenda. So again, we are currently in the design development phase. We reviewed some new floor plans on 220 at our most recent school building committee on the 6th. There was some talk also of potential kind of shifts to the floor plan to, again, find greater efficiency, bring more value into the drawings by moving some spaces around a little bit. We have also begun programming meetings have been scheduled. These are another round of meeting with end users to make sure that what we're designing meets their needs. The first round of feedback that we've gotten since we shared the plans has been very positive. There were a few groups that didn't like where their spaces were. We've heard back, and they're overwhelmingly positive in terms of where their new spaces are. We've also wrapped up our Phase 1 environmental. Phase 1 environmental, this is a requirement based on a number of laws, but of course it's RIDE requirements that we have a Phase 1 environmental site assessment. The environmental site assessment did find a few places that they just would like to do further investigation. We're going to be coming back before this group in a few weeks with a recommendation for a Phase 2 environmental site assessment. Additional work that went on, we are planning on holding some abutter meetings. I think right now we're looking at April to hold those meetings. We learned our lessons from our last abutter meetings. We're going to be sending out those notices with plenty of time. They will take the sort of the same shape as they did with the geothermal well. We'll have a meeting in the high school where everybody can attend. It'll have multiple time periods so that if you get off work at 6, you can attend. If you want to get the kids to bed and then come at 7:30, we'll be there at 7:30, and then we'll do a walk of the site with Gilbane, with Left Field, so that everyone kind of understands where the entrances are for construction traffic, where the exits are, all of these sort of things, so that people are well informed, so it's not a shock when we get a shovel in the ground. Additional meetings have been held. We have a planning board meeting tomorrow as well. So lots of work continues to move forward with authorities having jurisdiction.
All right, thank you, Chris. Go ahead.
Just making sure you're aware that of the week of April vacation, you wouldn't be trying to meet with the butters.
So I'll be at Disney. So
Good. I knew you were a dad, so I'm just hoping that you wouldn't do that.
I would much rather, I think, be at an abutters meeting, but
Well, that's not the week to go to Disney, but it's also not the week to have an abutters meeting. So I was just making sure you wouldn't, because no matter when you have it, people will say they may not be able to attend, but for sure, April vacation is a busy time here.
Yep, understood.
Thank you.
Of course.
So that really does limit you to, there's only 3 other weeks in April, so I mean, you're looking, and it's already March 15th.
Yeah, I think it's a great conversation at the school building committee next week. We want to have them earlier rather than later so we can adjust, but we've got some time before the end of June, before school lets out, to really get one going.
Your next meeting is when?
The next school building committee, has it been scheduled, Kate, for the 20th?
The 12th? The 20th. Right.
So, yes, we're here for a planning meeting. There's a planning board meeting tomorrow at 6:30 right here. We'll be here for that as well. It's another meeting.
Even if you meet on the 20th, April's gonna crunch right by. I'm just in my head as a planner thinking to send the notices out, to get the notices out, and in the mail.
Yeah, we're not gonna rely on a quick turnaround like we did last time. We're gonna give it, and if that means that it's the last week of April, then that means it's the last week of April.
And that does not impact.
No.
Did you want to say something? No. Okay, sorry. I just don't want that to be a slowdown.
Chris, last time you talked, or you couldn't talk about the strategies that you were using to accelerate the timeline. Is there any update on if the strategies you're using to accelerate the timelines are working?
I will say that we are making progress, yes.
What is your metric for progress?
With a substantial completion date that's in the summer that allows school to open on time. That's what we're working towards.
Best of luck.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chris.
One last thing, we did ask, and we don't have it here, but we are looking to have all the invoices of bills being paid sent to us, and any correspondence that the school building committee gets just be also forwarded to the council. Just saying it out loud to make sure that we're going to start to change our practice a little bit.
So at the tail end of the OPM report for this week, you should see some correspondence that came in. But yes, moving forward, this is the first report that includes the correspondence.
There's no correspondence from the public. That's what I was...
Sorry? Yeah. Yeah, this is from Doral to correspondence from the public.
Is it in this packet?
It should be.
Jill? Oh, okay. Oh, I didn't get to the last page. Okay. Oh, we have this email. I saw this email, sorry. Thank you. Just making sure.
Of course.
All right, thank you, Chris. It's going to move us now back up to item 7, licenses. A is a resolution granting a holiday sales license to POW Science LLC, doing business as POW Science, Old Tower Hill Road, Wakefield, application by Hema Bulmer. Hema, come on up. I'm happy to say that I bought a Ouija board at POW Science about a year ago.
Good evening.
So we just asked people in the audience, kind of be respectful, be quiet. We're going to continue business as usual, but you just want to tell us about the business. We all know about it. It's in the Wakefield Mall, but
Okay,
go
yeah.
ahead.
So we moved to Wakefield 2009 from Middletown, and it's pretty much a STEAM-based science educational toy store, and then we also do enrichment program. We go to schools and anybody who needs science, like preschool to middle school. That's what we do.
Great.
And we're right now in the Wakefield Mall. Come and visit me.
All right. How's
It's
business?
fun.
How's business? Good?
Good,
All right,
yeah,
good.
yes, thank you.
Excellent.
Hema, I love your store, and
Thank
the puzzles, the toys, it's amazing. And you continued a tradition of a great toy store with KB Toys used to be in that spot, and just keep up the great work.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
And then, it was just me and my husband started in 2003, and it's pretty much the idea is play, learn, have fun. And that's how we're going to teach science, doing more play. And then now, I think it's 21 years. So.
Power goes right by.
Yes,
you know?
right there. So.
Excellent.
Yeah. So I'm not used to with the grown-up talks. I like kids, but.
That's funny.
I had to go.
Motion to approve item 7A.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. Nice work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Keep
you
up the
so
good
much.
work.
I appreciate it.
We'll
Thank
be
you.
in soon.
Thank you. See you soon.
All right, it's going to bring us to item 7B, a resolution granting victualling holiday sales licenses and additional hours to SNL Pizza, Inc., doing business as Domino's Pizza, Old Tower Hill Road, Wakefield, application by Louis Brea.
Good evening. My name is Bill Mohan. I'm a licensing and permitting consultant, and I'm here with Louis. Louis is the L of SNL. Sarah is taking care of the baby. This is a truly American success story. Sarah and Louis started working in the Dorchester Domino's behind the counter. This is their 5th franchise. hard work and has brought them here. We're excited to be here in Wakefield, and I can't go any further without thanking every single department in this building, because we used every single department in this building to get to this point. And they have bent over backwards to make it easier for us, and we truly appreciate it and want you to know how we feel about that. We have gone through every procedure, been approved at every level, state and local, and all that's left to do tonight is have you vote and let us open tomorrow if we can.
All right.
So that's, if there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer.
No questions, but the Girl Scouts brought cookies, just so you know. You're a great addition. I know people go in and out of Domino's all the time, so I think
I'm sorry, but my grandson beat you to that, and at his basketball clinic on Saturday, we walked out and there were the Girl Scouts all lined up. But I found out that they now have chocolate chip cookies, so that's really good. I'm looking at that too. Okay.
I was wondering what time your Domino's will be closing?
We'd like to stay open. What is it?
Classic Domino's.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Especially on a Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and especially being the Domino's that is going to have responsibility for URI. We're expecting a few pizzas to be delivered there. And if you think that's bad, on Wednesday, I just got the approval from the licensing board in Boston, for South Boston, for a 3 a.m. delivery.
Oh, geez.
And most of the stores in Boston have 3 or 4 a.m.
All right.
50%.
I
Okay.
think
So
we're about to approve. I
we-
don't know if you
we-
go too long, it might not happen.
I would love to make a motion to approve item 7B.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that's approved. Good luck, guys.
Good luck.
Thank
Way
you.
to be young entrepreneurs.
And the baby, too.
When would we get is it okay to open tomorrow?
That's a head
Yeah,
question.
you got the authorization. Town clerk's here.
Oh,
Go ahead.
Okay.
So tomorrow, I'll notify my office clerk that you were approved tonight. So
Okay.
I would, most likely not tomorrow, but it'll get issued tomorrow.
Issue tomorrow. Okay,
Yes.
thank you very much. I
But if you
appreciate
cut
it.
a ribbon, invite us. We'd love to come.
All right, thank you. It's going to move us to item C, a resolution granting a victualling license to Chipotle Mexican Grill of Colorado LLC, doing business as Chipotle Mexican Grill, Old Tower Hill Road, Wakefield, subject to approval from the Building Department, Union Fire District, and the Rhode Island Department of Health. Application by Heather Hutchison. Heather, welcome.
No, not Heather. Sorry.
All right.
Heather's in our corporate office. I'm Johanna Croto,
Okay.
the district manager.
Sweet. So we see what's going on. We see it's almost ready.
Yes.
Tell us about it.
So we're going to open, hopefully, if everything goes right, on the 26th. Grand
Nice.
Nice.
Excellent.
opening. Yes.
All right.
This is the general manager, Grayson.
Welcome. So we're excited. I think the whole community,
I'm sure.
maybe, or at least all of URI is probably very
Yes.
excited.
I'm sure
So-
they are.
And what are your hours?
10:45 a.m. till 11 p.m.
Okay.
Nice. Some
Yeah,
good
not
late night
at- not
options.
that
That's great.
late.
7 days a week?
Yes.
There's no seating inside?
There's seating
There
inside.
is seating
Yep,
inside, all right.
seating inside and a
Just checking.
patio.
There's a big part of the business plan, though, is for online
Yes.
ordering and driving through to get the pickup.
Yes.
Is it a drive-through or is it a
Yeah.
pickup window?
Pickup window.
Okay, all
Yes,
right.
so make sure you place your order ahead of time.
Got it. Got it.
Oh, that's the difference.
Started with online.
Everyone starts that way. They show up and they think they can order. Yeah.
All right.
Well, welcome to town.
Thanks.
And our small businesses in our town have a great history of being civic philanthropists, and we encourage the local Chipotle to join us in supporting South Kingstown. And welcome. Welcome.
Thank you.
Motion to approve item 7C.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. Good luck.
Thank you.
All right, before we get to public comment, we have a motion to continue the goals and objectives on the work session.
From the interviews, we ran a little bit over, so item 2B, I'd like to move to continue to the next meeting, which is
March 24th.
March 24th.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
It's a good idea because Patty's not here anyway, so it's just more collaborative.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that item is continued to the work session at the next meeting on the 24th. It's now going to move us to public comments. At this point, anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on any matter, I invite you to come on up. We just ask that you introduce yourself and we'll limit you to 5 minutes. With that said, first come, first serve. Come on up.
Jim O'Neill, Wakefield. I had a couple of questions on the high school. The October 23, I've always kind of used as a baseline the $765 per square foot cost. So I know this is still kind of a moving square footage target, but is that number pretty much in place, whether it stays at 143,000 or is it 153,000? Just mathematics and length times width. If you have 10,000 more square feet, that's $7,650,000. So I just don't know if that's still a parallel that we can continue since that October 23rd meeting. And maybe everyone's here tonight, they could answer that. Second question I had, there's a construction contingency of about $2.9 million originally on that October 23rd estimate guide. Does that automatically just accrue to the hard cost construction folks? Everyone was confused. They thought this would have been part of the last place 10 million plus contingency clause. So I'm mixing up construction contingencies and overall project contingencies. So that's a little confusing if the builders during the hard costs are getting some protection there. I don't know if that's price protection, labor protection. I don't know what that is. The other question I had, I know all the sub-bids have to come to you, building committee, and then to you to approve. Does that include the demolition permit too? I don't know if that has already been chosen, and if it has, why isn't that a competitive bid? It's a big number, and so I just can't quite figure that out. I would like to hear if that's going to come before you too. Love to see how many different bids we get on that. And then lastly, we're still not positive if we can move this thing forward to an opening on September 2028. Where are we now? I'm not even sure anymore. But if not, even a month delay, 2-month delay, wouldn't it be smart to maybe try to negotiate something here? Open it up at the end of classes in June the next year, and maybe try to negotiate $2, $3, $5 million off of the total project costs. Might even help Gilbane and some of the subs fit all their other projects into this. But I haven't heard anyone maybe talk about that being a possibility. But I think it'd be very important to consider. So anyways, those are my thoughts, but I think they're reasonable questions, and I see it going on with our home construction right now, so something that I think you should consider and maybe ask those questions with everyone still here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, anyone else in the audience wish to speak? I invite you to just come on up. That is correct. All right, we're now going to move to the public hearing. Item 9A, it's a public hearing continued from February 24, 2025 to consider an application by South County Healthcare System for a zoning map amendment to rezone property located at 11 Kenyon Ave from its R10 medium high density residential zoning district designation to GI government and institutional as shown on Exhibit 1 attached here 2. We have Jamie Rabbit in the audience. We also have attorney Jack Revens for the applicant. Jack, looks like you're ready to go, so feel free to walk us through this.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the council. For the record, my name is John C. Revens Jr. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Revens, St. Pierre, and Wiley, with offices at 946 Centerville Road in Warwick. I have an original affidavit of notice to provide to the clerk. I sent her the copies a couple of weeks ago. So, Mr. President, members of the council, the matter that's before you this evening is amendment to the official zoning map of the town. My client, South County Health, is proposing to rezone the property from R10 medium high-density residential district to GI government institutional in order to support a change of use to the property to a much-needed employee parking area for South County Health. The employees who would use the parking area would be daytime employees of the hospital, and by assigning employees to this proposed lot, it would free up parking spaces on the main campus for patients and visitors who would spend less time trying to secure a parking space under the current conditions. The subject property and all of the properties surrounding us to the north and west are similarly zoned R10 medium high-density residential. Directly across the street to the north on Salt Pond Road, all those properties are zoned commercial neighborhood, and approximately 500 feet to the southwest of the subject property is the campus of South County Hospital, which, as you know, is zoned GI. Government institutional. This subject site on Kenyon at the corner of Salt Pond Road has an existing structure on it that was a medical office for many years, and now it's a housing complex. And that site of about 39,000 square feet of land has impervious surface on it according to the town's GIS system, Vision Assessment Card 64-1-16 of approximately 23,784 square feet. So more than half the property today is a large building and a parking lot. Our proposal is to have a parking area that would actually be about 21,000 square feet. And we have had discussions with a number of neighbors to the site. Our landscape architect, Don Layton, was the point person for South County Health in those discussions. Lynn Hopper, who was here this evening, was the neighborhood leader and is a direct abutter to the site. The initial plan that we submitted was a landscaping plan, and we elected to do a landscaping plan first rather than have an engineered plan, so people who live nearby could get a pretty good idea of what the site would look like if our request to change the zone was granted, and if the planning board subsequently granted us an amendment to the institutional master plan and approved development plan review to build the parking area. So the concerns that were expressed by the neighborhood focused on, through Ms. Hopper, focused on two things: where the pedestrian access would be from the site to walk from the site to the hospital. And the neighborhood consensus was unanimous that that access should be at the corner of Salt Pond and Kenyon, and the plan was modified to accommodate that request. The other request that was important, obviously, was to have a proper screening for the project. So the landscaping buffer that we have has a continuous landscaping buffer across the entire south side of the property, which is the Kenyon Avenue side. And the property has many large deciduous canopy trees that would be maintained on the property. And a selection of evergreen understory plants would be used that would grow to the height of 10 to 12 feet as they mature. The initial height of those plants would be specified in the 5 to 6 foot area, and those plants would be staggered between the large deciduous trees to basically present a solid canopy of landscaping around the entire property. A neighbor to the north, where the white I think it's a vinyl fence is, had been complaining about the poor condition of some large white pine trees in the area that were in some distress, and he was concerned that those trees could possibly fall, or portions of them could, and damage his property. The owner of the property has confirmed that those white pine trees have been removed from the site prior to tonight's hearing, and the plan would be to plant, if this is approved and my client acquires the property, they would replace those diseased and damaged trees with an evergreen hedge of green giant arborvitae that would have the same impact that the white pine did, but would be healthy and new and accomplish the goal. So the planning board has carefully considered this application, and they have made a unanimous recommendation to you to approve our application for the zoning map amendment from R10 to GI. The reason for the request is that parking areas are allowed in a GI district. They're also allowed in a commercial neighborhood district, which is across the street on Salt Pond Road from the subject property. So with that explanation, Andrew Prescott, who's the general counsel for the South County Health, is with me this evening, and he and I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have. And I think there has been a landscaping plan that I'm sure you've probably all seen by now that Mr. Layton prepared, but if it isn't, I saw Jamie's right here. Jamie, is that available for them to see on the screen tonight or no? The planning director's advised me that if you want to see that, he could pull
Let's
that
see
up
it.
if you wanted to look at it. But if you
Jamie,
have
let's
any-
pull it up.
If you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer any that you have or any that the community may have. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Jack. Any questions up here? Go ahead.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you, Mr. Evans. Just a few administrative items that the Planning Board did write a letter to the Town Council dated January 22nd regarding their actions on the referral associated with the proposed tax map. They did vote, as Mr. Evans said, to have the council adopt the proposed change with, in essence, we'll call them 3 conditions. One, specifically that the hospital would be required to amend their institutional master plan. Associated with that amendment would be the requirement that a traffic analysis plan would have to be submitted with that proposed amendment to their master plan, along with full landscaping plans prepared by Don Lighton Designs. So again, the permitting process is not tonight. The only thing tonight this would allow them to do is apply. You're just contemplating changing from residential to GI, which would give the hospital an opportunity to apply for an amendment to their institutional master plan, develop a fully vetted site plan for the site that will be reviewed by staff and DPS, become part of the amendments to their institutional master plan, which requires a subsequent public hearing, and then further action by either the administrative officer, being the planning director, or further action by the planning board, depending on how in-depth the site plans are. So, Ms. McEntee, if you'll give me a moment, I can pull up the landscape plans. It'll probably take me a minute or so, but I can pull those up. I don't know if you want to proceed with public comment, or do any of the council members have any questions of staff?
Any questions? Go ahead.
How often in your tenure here have designations gone from medium-high density residential to GI?
There have been only 2 modifications of the governmental institutional zone. The town council, excuse me, approved one for the EMS station on Ministerial Road, where you changed from, in essence, low-density residential, which means large acreage, large lot, to government institutional 1 to allow municipal services and structures to be built on that zoning. This is the only proposed GI change since I've been here for close to 5 years, coming this September.
So Jamie, we would like to give you a moment to get this on the screen. I think as we see it, maybe some more questions would arise.
So just to, is he getting ready, Jamie? Right. So as I understand it, if we switch the zoning to GI, it becomes used by the hospital, and the hospital can use it for whatever it wants, but it's still subject to their institutional master plan. It's not like we're changing it over and the hospital has a broad brush to do whatever they want with that parcel, right? They're very constrained in terms of process, correct?
That's correct.
All right.
And we concur with the recommendations that were made with the planning board approval. We don't have any objection to those.
So when you Google the property, you can see I appreciate what you said, the vinyl fence, and you can see the diseased pine trees way in the back, and you're telling us that those are removed? They're
gone
gone.
at the request of the neighbor who lives on the other side of the fence.
Yeah, the gray house on the other
Right.
side. So that's that. Who did that? The hospital did that?
I don't know who did it. I just know it was completed.
Okay.
I don't know who the contractor was who did it.
Okay.
But I was told when I walked in tonight that the trees were gone.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to share that so I was accurate, because my original presentation was that they were going to be
Yeah.
removed at the request of the neighbor. But
You can sort of see them in the back of the lot.
he was concerned about them falling on his property,
Mhm.
damaging the fence or damaging some other
Mhm.
aspects of his property.
Jack, this isn't the only effort to find additional parking by the hospital.
Correct, it is not.
There's been a purchase and sale pending with the town for the old police station for over a year, the latest of 4 extensions, and there hasn't been a whole lot of communication about that. The latest extension's about to run out, I think, in a couple of weeks. What's the status of that?
Well, may I say first that this is not a substitute for that. So if we go forward with this, the hospital is still interested in the other property. Beyond that, I have not been involved in those discussions, so I don't know what the status is, but I'm sure between Mr. Prescott and Mr. Manny, who are both here, they could fill you in on that. But I was not involved in those discussions. I'm aware that there's been agreements and extensions, but that's all. I haven't been the quarterback for that.
Andrew Prescott, you mind coming up?
So I just want to make sure we stay in the scope of the public hearing, because obviously, it's unusual that South County Hospital is here, and when we asked them to come months ago, they didn't want to come. So I don't want to blur the scope of this
Yeah, so
conversation.
this item is limited to the changing of the zoning at 11 Kenyon Ave to facilitate you, hospital, to pursue down a route to make it parking, which is separate and apart from what we're considering here tonight. We do know that we have been in talks with the hospital about potential land acquisition by the hospital, acquiring from the town to help ease the parking constraints further. We haven't had much communication from the hospital. We know it's separate and apart from this public hearing, but we would like to know that you guys are still sort of pursuing that in good faith, and this is not a substitution for that, but we haven't heard from you, so I just want to hear from you on that matter. Can you speak to it?
Sure. I think the uncertainty of the 11 Kenyon property, whether we would be able to achieve rezoning, has been one reason I think that the EMS property status has been somewhat uncertain and in flux. So if we obtain the zoning from the council, we'll be in a better position to analyze, okay, now that we have this additional roughly 55 spaces or so, what is the continuing need for the other property? Should we go ahead and undertake a project on the EMS property that has considerable barriers and obstacles and challenges? I think we'll be able to make that decision in relatively short order. I don't have an answer for you tonight about that, but again, we haven't known whether we're going to get 11 Kenyon for parking, so we haven't been able to answer that question.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right, we do have some pictures on the screen. This is a public hearing, so if anyone in the audience wishes to speak on this matter, we invite you to come on up. We just ask you to introduce yourself, and we're going to limit you to 5 minutes.
Lynn Harper, 31 Kenyon Avenue, the brick house next to the property, which would be at the top of that screen. And I just want to comment that this was the original proposal the hospital put out there. And as you can see, there's a crosswalk on the Kenyon Avenue, like it's a mid-block crosswalk. That's what one of the concerns that Mr. Revens was saying that we had as neighbors regarding pedestrian safety. And they were kind enough to take all our input, and they did do a revision that shows now a crosswalk at Kenyon and Salt Pond, where there is lighting, and it just makes a lot more sense. And they have been very accommodating, listening to us, soliciting input, and which we find refreshing and very welcoming, and they have been very responsive. So I'm here just to reiterate that if you do approve a zone change, we'd like you to stick to what the planning board has already recommended, and that it be in accordance with the ground level parking plans that they've presented, and that there be a condition on it that no other use under GI, like a building or maybe multi-level parking, a lab or storage facilities, any of the other stuff in that zone be allowed here.
I guess they're knocking down the actual structure that's there that they're using for, like, I think it was like employees were there. Yes, they're knocking it down. Okay.
And turn it into employee parking is what they're calling it.
Okay. And you're not the person to ask this to, and I don't want to take up all your time, but my concern is when the crosswalk is farther away from where people want to go, much like we talked about Kersey Road, and we were telling the residents, well, you can go left, and then you can go right, and then you can go right, and then you can get to Peacedale Elementary. No one's going to go backwards to go forwards, and this is a similar...
I can,
yeah,
if you don't
go ahead.
mind, I can answer that. I know early on with the planning board, Mr. Revens' comment was people aren't going to go downhill to go uphill.
There you go.
But working with Don Layton and him being out there with us and seeing the traffic patterns just within a few minutes, one, it's a but what's proposed earlier was a mid-block crosswalk, which is not necessarily a favored option. Having it at the intersection where there's already lighting and other signage for a crosswalk that goes across Salt Pond to get to the office park, it's a little safer. Because of the grade on the site, they'd be cutting down anyway on the Kenyon Avenue side and putting in a retaining wall. Mr. Layton has assured me that there'll be dense landscape screening and possibly a fence that would prohibit people from actually, breaking through the bushes to go uphill versus going downhill to go uphill. Does that make sense? And again, they can maybe talk about that. We're very concerned. It would be that particular plan shows a crosswalk right between two driveways, and I can tell you right now, those particular neighbors would not, they'd put up a big fight over that, and it really would not be a safe situation.
Well, that I agree with that, and but it's also still the crosswalk. If I were an employee parking, you're going to then exit, go down, and go up. It just seems...
Well, that's for their...
Yeah.
I guess there's going to be a pedestrian traffic analysis or something done, and they'd have to make it, in my mind, the only option. Right now, they do have some employees parking down across from Java Madness, and they've got to walk all that way. This is much easier than that, so...
Good. I have a question for Amy. This is a little bit new to me. Can we approve a zoning change from one type to another and impose the restrictions that Ms. Harper's asking for?
Yes, the council has the authority, if it wants to either approve a map change to GI and impose no conditions on the use of the property, or the council could change the zoning and limit future uses of the land to employee parking for South County Hospital if it want, or, so the council can, yes, you have the authority to impose conditions if necessary.
And that's what was presented to the planning board and why they made the recommendation that they did, so.
Right, but did you not, I'm making sure I heard you, but did you not say that you would like additional conditions that it would?
No.
No?
No, I just want to reiterate that that's what the conditions be, as per the planning board, that it would be used for employee parking only.
So I wrote down 3 conditions. They would need to come back and amend the institutional master plan. They would have to do a traffic study, and they would have to do a full landscaping plan. And that's not saying no above grade parking.
Jamie Rabbit, come on up.
You're next, Ms. Vieira.
Jamie,
So just,
hold on. We're going to allow you to come up.
just for clarification, the map that we have on the screen shows a mid-block crossing. The only difference between the paper map that we received from the hospital and from the landscape architect is that the mid-block crossing goes away and a crosswalk is installed at the intersection of Kenyon and Salt Pond Road. So it would go in the lower bottom left-hand corner versus the mid-block. We were concerned about that during the process. You try and avoid mid-block crossings in most instances unless it is the only option available to. If there wasn't an intersection for another mile, you may look at a mid-block crossing. But since you have an intersection just to the southeast of the proposed parking lot, it makes sense to utilize a crosswalk at an intersection. You can design a site to control pedestrian movements either through landscaping or another physical barrier like a split rail fence or a low stone wall. There are mechanisms for that. I want to clarify something with the planning board. The planning board is reviewing an application to change from residential to GI. The recommendation to the town council is not to just restrict this to a parking lot only.
Jamie, let me ask you this. The recommendation from the planning board,
Yes.
recommending that the zone change, that the council approve that, does that recommendation contemplate any additional conditions?
I'll read the entire condition as written by the planning board. The planning board respectfully recommends that the council approve of the requested change of the official zoning map be conditioned on the applicant's first obtaining planning board approval for all applicable amendments to the hospital's institutional master plan associated with the potential development of 11 Kenyon Ave as off-site employee parking. In any application to the planning board to amend its institutional master plan, the applicant shall include a traffic plan analyzing and evaluating the impacts of the new parking facility as it relates to the immediate neighborhood area. The second bullet, preliminary landscape plan as required by the town's land use regulations and ordinances. The landscape plan to be submitted during institutional master plan submittal shall incorporate the items contained in the plans prepared by Don Layton Designs. Pedestrian routing facility plan to serve as a guide to ensure that pedestrian movements from 11 Kenyon Ave to the hospital campus are appropriately designed, including and not limited to grade and/or landscape separation. The pedestrian facilities design element refers to walkways, sidewalks, and crosswalks that are to be exclusively used by pedestrians. Again, this is a change from residential to GI. GI allows other uses, but the hospital would not be able to contemplate any other use that isn't in their institutional master plan. Their institutional master plan at the present moment does not contemplate a parking facility at this location. So it would require an amendment to an institutional master plan. To Amy Gomes' advice, if you conditioned it to only be residential, that would require someone could come back and amend that in the future, no different to amending the institutional master plan. It's just another step through town council. But the planning board did not recommend any additional restrictions to the uses on the property other than during the permitting process that a full-blown transportation plan associated with vehicular movements and pedestrian movements, along with a landscape plan, be submitted at the institutional master plan stage. The way our regulations are written, that potentially could come in after an amendment to the institutional master plan. What the planning board wanted to be clear on is that they knew why they were amending the institutional master plan, and specifically what the net result would be if they made the amendments. In essence, they want to know what car they're buying before they, agree to buy a car.
So some pretty tight safeguards here.
I would say they're a relatively tight safeguard.
All right.
So right now, how many cars park in the lot right now? None, right?
The facility is no longer operating as a doctor's office.
Gotcha, but nobody's like parking down there now, right?
There may be an occasional car there.
Okay, so we're going from 0 to 55 cars, right?
Well,
Spots.
current, but that doctor's office could open tomorrow. There's nothing preventing that doctor's office from opening tomorrow.
Sure, so I'm just saying, like, in the potential in the future, we'd have a parking lot of 55 spots, right?
Yes.
Am I wrong? Cool. We're right next to a river, right?
You're in close
Across the
proximity,
street.
but you're not abutting. So
We're across the street.
with regards to any site plan design of this,
Yep.
there is zero stormwater treatment on this site today.
Sure.
There is nothing controlling runoff, there's nothing controlling oil drips from cars, fuel from cars, or anything. And any amendment to build this parking lot as a modern parking lot, all DEM and state requirements associated with stormwater management, including pre-treatment, which includes phases associated with solids and sediment and liquid removal and treatment, is incorporated in that plan. We're not at that phase yet. That would come at institutional and further permitting through the process.
Sure.
The
I
hot-
just meant hypothetically, in the future, if this went forward and all that,
Yeah.
there would be, at tops, 55 cars in a lot that could not be built on higher, or would have to come back to us because it's not in the master plan.
Would have to go back to the planning board.
Right.
All right. Thank you, Jamie. Jack, come on up.
I just wanted to clarify that until it got close to this point, the building was occupied. There were cars, there were people living in the building, there were cars parked there. I believe the landlord may have, the owner, was also the landlord, has made arrangements in recent months to assist the tenants in moving. So your comment that there may be no one parking there, that could be accurate now if everybody's moved out of the building, but there were people living there and parking there, and other people were using the parking lot, because I went by it a number of times and saw quite a significant number of cars from time to time in the lot. And if you look at your GIS mapping, which is the town's mapping, the impervious surface that exists now is larger than the impervious surface that we're proposing. So not only will you get stormwater management, you'll actually won't have any more impervious, and you may have a little bit less. And the plan that we modified isn't the one that's up on the screen. The one that was modified is the one that you have in front of you. And apparently that one didn't make it into this program, so Mr. Rabbit couldn't put it up there. So the walkway that you see up on the middle left-hand side of that, as you know on the plan that you're looking at in front of you, is now in the lower left-hand corner at the intersection, which is because that's what the neighbors asked for. And our goal was to accommodate that request. So that opening all goes away, and there'll be a landscaping buffer, will be a solid landscaping buffer along the entire southerly side of the property along Kenyon Avenue. And the grade is much different there. If you've been out to the site, you know it's a very sloping site. So the parking surface is actually below, elevation-wise, Kenyon Avenue. So there won't be a way for people to park there and walk up that slope and trample through the bushes and around the trees and get to Kenyon, except for the way it's going to be marked and sidewalked for them at the corner.
I appreciate the clarification. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jack. All right, this is a public hearing, so anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak on this, I invite you to just come on up.
My name is Anne Marie Vieira, and I've lived on Kenyon Avenue at 36 Kenyon Avenue, which used to be 123, for over 70 years. And as a senior citizen, I'm concerned not only with the crosswalk being moved down as a safety reason, because it used to be at the crest, or originally it was at the crest of the hill. You have ambulances, you have cars, you have trucks racing up the street. And also on Salt Pond Road, you have all the cars coming, in particular in the summertime, from the beach racing with blinkers on. Are they going up Kenyon Avenue or are they going on Route 1? You never know. But I'm also concerned with the fact that if the hospital decides, or if the hospital gets the okay to change the R10 zone to a GI, and they decide not to put a parking lot there, what happens to the zone change? Does it revert back to R10? Does it stay GI? Can anybody come in there and do whatever else that can happen with GI?
We're going to have our solicitor answer your question there, land use expert Amy Goins. Go ahead.
There would be no reversion. Any reversion, if the council wanted to take that step, there is authority for the council to take that step, but that would require a public hearing, reverting property to the previous zoning district.
So what happens if the hospital decides not to put in the 55 parking spaces and it's now GI?
Unless the council wants to specify that condition, that, you know, if the parking lot were not installed within a certain time frame, again, a public hearing would be required to revert it. If that provision isn't included in your approval tonight, if you approve it, it would just stay zoned for GI. So again, the council, you're in control of what, if any, conditions you attach to any approval. If you want to attach the condition that it can only be used for a parking lot, and then the parking lot isn't developed, it can't be used.
So to answer your question, it remains GI. It would require a subsequent public hearing to change the zoning back to R10.
Okay. And if I may say, Ms. Vieira, I think it's a reasonable thing to ask. So I appreciate you coming out tonight. And you were one of my favorite math teachers at Prout. On a Monday you come out, my God, Ms. Vieira, what a pleasure. Just want to let you all know, the 4 council people here, best math teacher in the building, at the very least.
Just, Mr. President, to add to what Amy Goins had advised you of, these zoning regulations are also unique as it's associated to GI. So there are governmental institutional regulations in the area. The town can do things on the property, but when a hospital does something on the property, they are mandated by your zoning ordinance to have an institutional master plan. So if they amend their institutional master plan to have a parking lot there, that is what the amendment allows them to do. They cannot do anything other than that unless they come back to the town through the planning board process, through a public hearing process, to amend that institutional master plan to something other than a parking lot. So there's kind of a couple layers to the cake that normal properties don't have. You have this for the hospital because it's unique in the functionality and its potential impact on the community. You don't have that for the town. You don't have that for the high school. You don't have that for other large municipal projects. You only have that in this instance for the hospital. So there is an additional permitting layer.
So the short answer from Mrs. Vera is, if the council approves the zoning change to government institutional with the recommendations and limitations that were proposed by the planning board, they could either build the parking lot or they have dead space, unless something else is brought to the planning board or the town council.
Yes.
Okay?
I also am very concerned with the fact that they've done a traffic survey during COVID. And at that time, nobody was driving. So a lot of things could be different now. Are they going to do another traffic survey?
That's what Jamie explained to us. That was one of the conditions from the planning board.
I guess I wasn't listening. How are the cars that are going to be parking there going to be controlled in the sense that you don't have any outsiders over there parking. Are there going to be stickers? Is there going to be a gate? Are they going to have a cart to, slip in that slot?
I think that is something to be fleshed out at a later date. This
Okay.
merely,
All right.
tonight, this merely allows for the change in zoning.
Okay.
How that would all work out is subsequent to be worked out between hospital planning board. This is just the zoning change.
Okay, all right, I'll take that. And the sidewalk really does need to go to the bottom of the street. To answer Deborah's question, it has to go to the bottom of the street because it was right on the crest of the hill. You could not see anything coming or going if somebody was crossing the street.
Thanks for coming out, Ms. Vieira.
So I think with the access coming in off South Salt Pond, it makes sense. I guess I was kept thinking they were going to come in from Kenyon, so that access is gone, correct? So,
All right, anyone else in the audience wish to speak? Just come on up.
Jacqueline Barber, and I'm also here on behalf of Daniel Barlow, who I believe emailed all of you. And a lot of concerns that I have or Daniel had seems to be at least addressed. But once again, I just want to mention that Joni Mitchell was right, building parking lot. It just seems to me that the increase in population and the density in the cars on Salt Pond Road and Kenyon, in the middle of today, is busy. A lot of traffic. And that's not even trying to get over to Woodruff Avenue and South County Office Park. And the picture looks beautiful. I saw the rendition. And my experience has never been that that's how it turns out to be. And all these trees and deciduous trees, we're taking away a lot for an asphalt parking lot with 2 entrances, and that's not even with summer. And I believe it was 55 parking spots, and if it's only during the day, that means that place is going to be open at nighttime. You have summertime coming, and you have the waterfront parking, or people could park there to go various places. I know parking is an issue, but I don't think it's just going to be convenient only for hospital parking. It's going to become more of a public parking spot, and that's another concern. And the nature of the neighborhood. Neighborhoods are going by the wayside now, and so I just wanted to mention that. A lot of people have brought up the points that I wanted to, and I know it's just a preliminary for changing zoning, but just something to consider, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
How we doing, guys? Johnny Scheel, I'm the owner of 11 Kenyon. Just a quick couple things here with the parking, the concerns and stuff like that. The hospital does have a full plan, and as it sits right now, it is an open parking lot. And I mean, a lot of these neighbors have even used that parking lot. I wouldn't say there's people from all over the place using it for anything different than what it is and what the neighbors use for. It's used for the tenants that were there, and that was it. They're going to have regulations to it. The reason I did this, to be honest with you, we got in this conversation, was I was visiting people in the hospital, and no spots. There was nothing else behind it. I just think they need more parking at the hospital, and that's really where it came from. It didn't come from another place of art, anything like that. In my opinion, every town should have parking for their hospital, and we're short on parking over there. So that's it.
Thank you, Johnny. All right, anyone else in the audience wish to speak on this? Go ahead.
So just want to, the woman who just spoke about parking, did Mr. Evans say that there's going to be less paved surfaces with this plan than currently exists?
What I said was that the GIS map, which you use as a town, indicates that the square footage of impervious surface is more than we're proposing. What I don't know, Councilwoman, is whether that's accurate, because it's not our math. But I would say this to you, that if it's not accurate, it says 23,000 some hundred square feet. So even if it was 16,000 square feet, what we're proposing is, I think, 21,000 square feet. The parking area that's now has no treatment for stormwater runoff because it was built decades ago. And it has 2 entrances now, one on Kenyon, one on Salt Pond. So in the proposal that we presented to the neighbors and that Lynn Hopper was pretty much in concurrence with, the 2 entrances were reduced to 1. The pedestrian access was moved to the corner, and it's a pretty elaborate landscaping plan. And Mr. Layton, who some of you may know or not know, Gates Layton in their day was the premier landscape architectural firm in southern New England by miles, and they did more work internationally than any landscape architect firm has ever done, based in Rhode Island. And Mr. Layton personally did this plan, met and discussed it with neighbors and tweaked it in response to their comments. And even on the traffic, since it's a hospital parking lot, every single person who's coming to that lot is an employee of the hospital. So this doesn't increase by 1 the traffic count on either one of those streets. And number 2, if 50 employees park there, that reduces the peak AM trips up Kenyon by 50. And it reduces the afternoon PM peak coming out of the hospital parking lot by 50. So that from the perspective of Kenyon Ave only,
Wait, Jack, my
this will
math
create
says
some
50.
diminution in the traffic going in and out.
My math says 55.
Is it 55? Well,
But somebody could be on vacation, or somebody could be
yeah,
on sick that day.
thank you for the correction, Roy. But I know that when they changed the pedestrian access away from Kenyon, it tweaked the layout a little bit of the parking lot, so I apologize. It went from 51 or 52 to 55, and I didn't relook at that. So overall, I think there's pluses for everyone in this, and there's a certainty as to what's going to happen here. There's a lot of uses, being a land use lawyer, that someone else would have proposed for this site if Mr. Shield and the hospital didn't make an agreement subject to this zone change. That may or may not have been pleasing to the neighbors, so I think this is a reasonable trade-off. And my best guess is, if the parking lot gets used a little bit by other people, it's going to be people in the neighborhood who are having company over and don't have enough room in their driveway and going to ask the hospital if it's okay to let people park there on Saturday or Sunday or something else. I really don't see it as a South County resident, although I live in Narragansett and not here. I don't see it as a jumping off point for people to pull in there and go somewhere else, because they've already had the parking lot across the street at those medical buildings for the last 25 years. And I've ridden in there several weekends looking at this site, and the parking lot's empty. So people already had a place to park across the street if they wanted to use it to go to the marinas or go anywhere else that's not a crazy distance from this location. So I wouldn't be worried about that.
So I also think based on what someone said, is that the hospital is using the Marina Park, and we've heard from other people that it's just residents trying to launch their boats at Marina Park. Where's Barry Gross? He already left. But I think you would be giving back an area that your employees are using in a Marina Park, which we didn't agree to that use in the first place, right?
Right.
You
It's
with
on.
me?
Yep.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that, Councilwoman, but I'm sure if you're hearing that from your constituents, then you would know what's going on at Marina Park better than I would in terms of parking. But that's the intention, is the challenge is in the daytime. Patients come in the daytime, visitors come in the daytime. There's a lot of outpatient activities now that occur in hospital settings where you come in the morning, you go home at the end of the day. And this will help take some of the pressure off that. But structurally, we're underparked even with this, but it's a significant improvement, and it'll be employees, so the cars won't be moving during the day unless somebody decides to run down to their car to go make a 20 or 30-minute errand or go out for a quick bite at one of the nearby restaurants rather than eat in the hospital cafeteria or at their
210's
workstation.
reopening, so.
Pardon?
210 Oyster Bar is reopening, so,
Yeah.
right down the street.
Thank you.
My question was, look, I really appreciate you in the hospital taking the comments and the complaints seriously from the neighbors, right? These neighbors care about their neighborhoods. They've been living here for decades, right? And so taking the advice and saying, you know, if we're not going to have it on Kenyon and we're going to have it on Salt Pond Road, it's a great concession, right? Because we want less traffic on there. Now, right now, are most employees parking on campus at the hospital, right?
Well, to the best of my knowledge, yes, but my knowledge is limited. I'm not working there every day. The best of my knowledge.
The guy
yeah.
behind you is shaking his head, yes.
Yeah, most of them, Andrew, then he knows.
Well, I'm just saying that people at home are watching, so they may not be able to hear that. So,
Thank you.
so they're mostly parking there.
Yes.
Well, I would just, as you continue along this process, I know this is what the hospital wants, right? This is what they want to do. And I think that the gentleman, Johnny in the back, made a good point. When you go to the hospital, the last thing you want to worry about is finding a parking spot to go visit someone you care about, right?
Or to make your 7 o'clock surgical appointment.
Or whatever, right? You know, that's where I did pediatrics. I was born in South County Hospital, right? But the complaints from the neighbors, right? Legitimate. And they want to be heard and respected and felt like they're being heard in their complaints. People are always going to complain about more traffic and such, but they want to be heard. I'm glad you all came out tonight. And as you continue this process, continue reaching out to the neighbors directly, right? Continue to try to have them heard, because some of their suggestions are great, right? This is a good suggestion, having the crosswalk at the end of the street. You know, in the future, I've been pro speed bump, right? If we need speed bumps in this town, I think that near the hospital might not be a bad idea either. So I'm glad that our neighbors came out tonight to make sure that their voices were heard too, and thank you for continuing to listen to them.
No, thank you. We appreciate their comments. Their comments were reasonable, and there was no hesitation. We embraced the comments because they were reasonable, they were well thought out, they were balanced. And, you know, I haven't done a head count, but I've been around long enough to know that there's probably a significant number of people who live within 20 blocks of this location who work at the hospital, and we know that. You've got a lot of hospital employees in the neighborhood. They've been good neighbors for years, and we want to keep them as good neighbors, and it's not easy to do that for them or for us in the environment we live in 2025 and how hospital and healthcare is evolving. But the neighbors have been great, so we'll be sure to keep them involved every step of the way.
All right, thank you, Jack. We have discussed this at length.
Motion to close the public hearing.
We got a motion to close the public hearing. We have a second. Go ahead.
If I could interrupt, please, just to notate for the record, we received an objection from Hinckley Allen on behalf of their client, Jane Constanza. And then we received the following written comments from Anne Marie Focarelli, Cynthia Sorlian, Daniel Barlow, Lynn Harper, and Richard Moore. That's all.
Okay, legal counsel. We have a motion, a second. That was read into the record subsequent to the motion second. No procedural issue there? All right, there's a motion to close the public hearing, a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Public hearing is now closed. Do I hear a motion on item 9A? I'll make a motion to approve item 9A. Is there a second?
I'll second. We need to flesh out the conditions. Tell me if this is enough, Amy. Motion to approve the change to government institutional with the limitations and restrictions that were recommended to the town council by the planning board.
That would accomplish attaching those restrictions to the zone map change. It would not limit the use, but as the planning director noted, there are limitations on use that are built into the zoning ordinance already. In other words, the hospital can't just pop up a building there without going through the approval process.
All right, I'm going to rescind my motion. Go ahead, make the motion.
Motion to approve the change in zoning to government institutional with the limitations and restrictions that were recommended to the town council by the planning board, specifically the traffic study, the revised institutional master plan, and preliminary landscaping plan that was indicated by Mr. Evans.
All right, I'll second that. Discussion, I have a question, Amy Goins. By sort of elaborating as to more than just what was recommended by the planning board, are we adding things that are making this more limiting?
No, I think the motion was simply to adopt the recommendations of the planning board.
Okay.
It also, Jamie Rabbit, where are you? There you are. Please keep us in the loop about any changes to their application, or if anything else comes up. I think that this council is interested in knowing where the next steps happen. So, thanks.
We can do that.
Any other discussion? Good.
Just one more question to nail this down. The revised plan, because I want to make it clear, Ms. Harper pointed out correctly, what's on the screen is not what we've been handed, and the one we've been handed is dated September 5, 2024, that shows the crosswalk at Salt Pond Road. That was part of the planning board's
That came
consideration?
in subsequent to the planning board's decision.
Okay.
Planning board was concerned about the mid-block crossing. So again, that was demonstrating how much they were willing to landscape the site. Again, every stormwater, final access will all be vetted during the institutional master plan and site plan approval process.
And this is, we're getting this in a piece of paper. This is out there for the public to see?
It was filed as a public document with the planning board, planning staff.
Yes.
You all seen it?
Yeah, she gave it to us.
No, I'm just making sure.
We also have it. We got it March 5th from Colleen at 12:32 p.m.
Great.
All right, so we have a motion, we have a second, we're still in discussion. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. Thank you all for your time. It's now going to move us to item 10, new business. We're going to move to item C. Luke Murray, come on up.
You ready?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Somewhere.
All right, Luke.
All right, good evening. For your consideration is an award of contract to Catalyst Commissioning Group in the amount of $131,200 for commissioning agent services related to the high school building project. Commissioning agent services are required per ride regulation for any project over $500,000, which our project is. It is something that we need to get going. We've talked about schedule. This is something that is timely. We need to get a commissioning agent on board now so they can start reviewing mechanical systems and things that they'll be dealing with in the future. They'll continue through the project. So right now, they're going to work with the architect on the design of the mechanical systems and functional systems. And then as we proceed, they'll continue on with us as part of the project team until the very end, at which point they actually commission or get all the systems up and running and do training with our staff personnel, et cetera. As far as solicitation process, we did go out to an RFQ/P process. It's a little bit of a variation as an RFQ because there's a weighted average that includes pricing. So typical RFQ is qualification only. This did include a weighted point average based on the pricing. We had received 4 firms that had submitted. It went through a review process with 5 individual members, a couple from Studio Jade, a couple from Left Field, as well as Brian Mahoney from the School Building Committee. We felt he was the most appropriate as the facilities director. They did come out with a tie, 3-way tie on the recommendation. So what we initially brought forward to what they brought forward to the School Building Committee, all things being equal, was based on price, right? Going with Catalyst, which was the low bidder as far as the RFQ. Some discussion ensued. I have to thank Dave Palizzettis for bringing it up because he did, having experience in the industry. And I also had notified the building committee that when you took out the pricing, the qualification shifted to another firm. There was another firm who scored as a top qualifier. So that raised concern among the building committee. We decided to put the full stop on, asked Left Field to go back out, check references, and make sure that the pricing was valid. They had done that. They actually checked references for all of the firms, all 4. All of them came back pretty well, 3 of them better than others. They also made sure that the pricing was valid. Catalyst, who was the apparent low bidder, actually ranked really well in the reference checks that were done. Most of the people who have used them had very positive reviews. And in talking to Catalyst, for the reason for their pricing, they essentially said that they're trying to break into the Rhode Island market, the New England market, and they haven't done a ton of ride work. In consultation with Kate Turner and Chris and others from the Left Field team, we had discussed, how much does that make a difference, like the ride experience. And Phil Conte expressed that there's not a lot of interaction with ride, and I'll let Chris kind of speak to that in a second, on what that meant. So the Left Field's final recommendation, they reconvened the committee. There was a final recommendation that was made, and essentially came back to the building committee for a recommendation to the council, which I have in front of you now. I'll let Chris answer any questions in regards to what the commission agent does and maybe speak a little bit to the review process.
So as Luke said, the commissioning agent follows us from design all the way through project closeout. They take an active role also in training for end users on mechanical systems as well. Left Field has mechanical, electrical, and plumbing experts, which we've hired, which are former engineers or commissioning agents themselves that help manage this process. On our end, our MEP expert was one of the reviewers of this subcommittee package. And then in terms of if there is a concern about them not having direct ride experience, we're not concerned about that because commissioning a building is commissioning a building. The caveats of the RIDE process, as it's different than Connecticut or Massachusetts, Left Field is the company that manages the RIDE process and the other consultants within that RIDE process. So we don't have a concern with Catalyst not having direct RIDE experience because they had exceptional references and they're providing a really good value for the project, which allows us to put money back into the project scope or to have the project come in, our soft costs come in under what we budgeted our soft costs for.
That's what we want.
All right. Any questions? Go ahead.
Nope, so I'm just happy I'm going to make a motion that we approve item 10C.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I've got a few things on this because I was, in addition to reading Luke's memo that was submitted with the agenda, I was also at the February 20 meeting. I want to commend Dave Palizzetti for catching this and I think improving the process. I don't frankly understand why an RFQP would have gone out, had an evaluation rubric, and not had the references checked at the point where a recommendation was being made. And your comments, I think, were dead on at the school building committee. All things being equal, go with the low bidder. Dave raised a couple of good points about why are they the low bidder when it's substantially lower. The explanation that they're looking to break into the market makes sense. The satisfactory reference checks is fine. And I've said, I don't think I said it at the meeting, but well.
I think we talked about it all also at the last meeting of how Caitlin went out and did the math and everything. So I think what we learned is in an effort to go quickly, you bypassed a step. Somebody bypassed a step.
Correct. Yeah, and I will, just to speak to that, you're absolutely right. It wasn't done. It was a bit of a rush, right? I even had it on the agenda thinking, all right, we could compress.
Yeah.
In some scenarios, there is a clear front runner, and it's so far blown that you bring it to council with some confidence. Clearly, that was not the case, and that's why the process worked. I appreciate what you're saying 100%, and it's something we should always do, and we typically always do, is call references, especially with a contract to this side. And so that's why we did a full stop. And I do appreciate Dave, being the levity in that conversation.
And the other aspect of it too was, it was a learning experience for me listening to the dialogue. The RFPQ being weighted towards the price can skew the results. And I think that's something anybody and everybody that's dealing with bidding processes ought to take into account. I understand that there's a value to it, but it's something we all need to be careful with.
You almost need to have like a set A with the price and the ranking with and without the price weighted into it, because it was a huge, when you watch the meeting, the dialogue shows that when you pulled it out, the rankings changed. That's why a different person bubbled to the top at the meeting, correct?
Well, yeah, and it's good, you actually understand why state law speaks to architects and engineers. They're actually required to go RFQ only, right? And then you negotiate a proposal after. But you can understand why, because when you're looking at qualifications, especially among those professionals who are really technical skilled, it's more important that you get somebody who's technically proficient than worrying solely on price.
Right.
In this case, we tried to do a little bit of balance between both of them. We don't usually get these skewed results, but we caught it and did due diligence.
I'm not saying don't use the weighted average. It's just something to be cautious about.
Absolutely.
I know I will.
So,
All right.
Motion second.
We have a motion, a second. We're in discussion. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Luke. Terry Murphy, come on up.
Good evening. Agenda item 10D is a recommendation for council consideration for an award of contract to GZA Geo Environmental Inc. For surveying, conceptual, and final design services for the Noise Farm Land Management Plan in the amount not to exceed $62,500. As a bit of background, the Noise Farm property was purchased by the town in 2006. There's 248 acres on that parcel. It is a wooded parcel with existing trails. And in 2019, the committee that was appointed by the town council, made up of a variety of representatives from the town with specific expertise, presented a land management plan for the Noise Farm property, which focused on developing parking as well as trail development and signage throughout the property, which would then allow for, not that it isn't being used currently, but there's nothing that identifies it, and there's really no good access in terms of parking along Route 138. And this recommendation is to start that process. The council did allocate $100,000 in the current operational budget for this project, and the Parks and Recreation Department is looking to move forward with this to be able to get plans and specs in place along with permitting that's required through DEM and DOT. And GZA is we put out an RFQ. There were 4 firms that were issued the RFQ: Park Corporation, CHA Consulting, Beta Group, and GZA. And GZA was determined to be the most qualified firm for this project. Questions?
All right, thank you, Terry. Any questions? Go ahead.
Just in your memo, you indicated that they essentially had worked down to the 62.5,
Yes.
which leaves you 37.5 for the work, and there was a reference to using in-house resources to do the actual
That's correct.
construction work. Is that going to leave you enough to actually get it done?
When we looked at this, and by the way, the review team was made up of Rich Bourbonnais from Public Services, Mike Stack, our Natural Resource Officer, Rex Eberly, our Park Superintendent, and we had a lengthy discussion on leveraging our in-house resources to be able to do some of the work particularly the trail development. What this bid recommendation focuses on is really the parking. That is the big component of this that needs to be developed so that people can actually pull in on Route 138. That's the primary site that's been identified for parking, to be able to access the trails. So that's the big piece of this. And then trail development, as I mentioned, there's about 4 trails that are already existing that need some TLC, and our Parks Division does that regularly on our other park trail systems, and they would be doing that along with any work that we can get done in-house, either using public services equipment and personnel and parks personnel. But yes, so the idea is that we'll use the remainder of the funds to be able to contract out what we can, but leverage our in-house expertise as well.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for bringing this one forward. I know this was like a big coup for the town to get this parcel. Several original owners, and they had to get a lot of siblings on board to donate the land. That's the way it was explained to me. This parcel, for everyone's understanding, it's on the same side as URI on the 138 side, but I like near King's Rose kind of thing over there. And that I was just thinking that once we get the trails sort of in good shape, maybe we can work with the Scouts or other community organizations to sort of take those Eagle projects on to have.
Absolutely.
You know, we have lots of students and young people who are looking to do things and that, or leveraging other resources. And I don't necessarily think that all of the town development maintenance needs to be developed by the town, so we can look. But that's future. But I was trying to get this so that we could recognize that we've owned it for almost 20 years and try to be just
It's
one.
a beautiful piece.
Yeah.
And when there's clear access with signage, I think it'll be more well-used by our residents and visitors.
I think it's also like there's a lot of trails around, but that's there's Potter Woods, I think, is the closest one in Kingston, but that's not owned by the town. That's
No,
the
it's
land
not,
trust.
right.
So I mean, this is like a nice spot for the town to sort of, and just the constituents at URI probably will take advantage of it as well.
I
So
very much agree with that.
I think it'll be well used.
Motion to approve item 10D.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Chief Moynihan, come on up.
Chief Moynihan, he's out of state, attending a conference. I'll be speaking on his behalf.
And are you qualified to speak on his behalf?
A little.
Point of order.
So Chief Moynihan and I have talked about this for quite a while. As we all know, there's been a dramatic increase in school shootings, mass shootings. It's the best practice of a modern law enforcement agency to have patrol rifles in their cruisers and readily available to respond to any active shooter threat. And the South Kingston Police Department has had that type of training, and they do carry those type of rifles. They carry 16-inch AR-style rifles that in their cruisers. They're all highly trained in using it and responding to anything that could occur. But as anything, things wear out, things become obsolete, and those rifles have been replaced by short barrel rifles. So what is the difference? Short barrel rifles, a barrel less than 16 inches or an overall length of 26 inches or less. So they're very concealable, they're very compact, and they can be in cases, very, very readily available. But also, state law passed a couple of years ago that allows law enforcement agencies to have suppressors on these rifles, which are, common terminology is a silencer. And so it really helps law enforcement if they have to use one of those so their eardrums don't get blown out, or when they're training. It's really needed for those. So Chief Moynihan has ordered 4 short barrel rifles with suppressors and with optics, sights, mounts, and slings, so they can continue to be not only highly trained, but highly prepared. I fully support his request. The total request is for $17,883 for all 4 rifles, 6-hour rifles, And of that, the $11,942 is for the rifles themselves, and the $4,745 is for the optics, mounts, and so forth. They will also have an adapter on where they can be carried, locked of course, on motorcycles as well. So anyone in this town can respond to a serious threat if needed. So they're legal. I support his request, and he has the money allocated for those rifles.
All right, thank you, Jim. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve item 10E. Sorry.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Jim, just one quick question from the memo that was submitted. It said the older patrol rifles that these are going to replace are now going to be used for training purposes. What happens to the ones that are now being used for training purposes?
So they really are not, they have double use. There's really none that are dedicated just for training purposes. These can be used, there's only 4 of these new rifles, and there's a lot of patrol officers on the road. So these can be used to supplement the officers already that are on the road. But when they're used for training purposes only, like they disable the firearms and they make them into red guns, they call them, so they cannot fire live rounds, those are the guns that will be dedicated to use.
All right. We're not disposing of anything then?
No.
Okay.
Is every police officer trained to use this short barrel rifle?
Most are trained, and there are some administrative personnel that are not, but you cannot carry one unless you're trained.
And so then they go by seniority? How does he issue the new ones? Just curious.
No, they're not just by seniority. So there's 5 vehicles on the road at any given time. There's 4 of those new rifles will be on the road at any given time, and it depends. It depends who's on the road, who has, whether he's going to give one to a sergeant, a supervisor, or whatever.
Okay.
So they're like the truck guns kind of thing? Like if, leave them in put in the trunk, these rifles?
No, I believe, no. There's some that go in the trunk, depending on the cruiser. Like if you lift up the trunk, they could be locked there, or they could be locked right above your head. And so I know people that are not trained in this or familiar with these, they have a lot of concerns with these type of rifles. The way they're secured in vehicles, they can't get them out. There's no way they can get them out of those vehicles. I'm talking about if someone breaks in the car.
I hear you, yeah.
I mean, but police officers are trained on how to get it out of that rack quickly.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right, that passes. Chief Craig Stanley, come on up.
Good evening, Council. Before you have a recommendation to increase the ambulance fees for transport. The last time we raised the rates were in 2020, the council approved then. As the market changes, every so often we review the fees, and this time with our this time of year with our billing company, they provide suggestion of a market study of other departments throughout Rhode Island and Massachusetts of what the rates are or where they are competitively. So what we have before you is what they've recommended to increase the rates for transport. And again, this is if we transport somebody to an emergency room.
Got it. Any questions for Chief Stanley?
So it's going to cost more to go to the hospital, basically, right?
Well,
No,
it's
we
It's
don't
going to cost
charge-
insurance more.
Yeah, the insurance, correct. It would
Right.
cost the insurance, correct. So the way that it works is that let's say you're a resident and we transport you to the hospital, and we'll say your bill is $1,000. Insurance covers $500. The other $500 as a resident is written off, so you're not charged for that. So it's more for the insurance companies. As and unfortunately, Rhode Island has very low rates. Our competitors or our colleagues in Massachusetts, their rate of return is more than Rhode Island. So it's time, fuel increases, everything else, so we need to bump up that to try to offset some of that cost.
Thanks.
Motion to approve item 10F.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
All right, it's going to move us to item G. Jim, go ahead.
This item here is in relation to an order of public notice that would be required to make an adjustment on allowing any type of trench being done at a historical cemetery within a 25-foot border of the cemetery itself. I met with the building inspector today, and he showed me the pictures and went over what the issue is here. So the trench is within 8 feet of the cemetery. It's already been dug, and the conduit has been put into the ground. It doesn't mean that he can't do that, it just means that the town council would have to give approval of that. And that's why a notice of public hearing would be required. And I'll turn it over to the solicitor now to go over any questions you might have on why.
And the planning director can offer comment as well. There's a state law and local ordinance that requires council approval of any alteration or, development work, digging within a certain distance of a historic cemetery. So this notice will allow for that required public hearing. The Historic District Commission also has jurisdiction over this application, and they've reviewed it in January. They've already tentatively approved this pending your approval. So it does need to be advertised in the newspaper per state law. I believe the trench has already been, the work has been partially completed, but not fully completed. So again, this is just a requirement of state law because it's a historic cemetery.
Thank you.
What is Kingston Farm Properties LLC doing on the property?
So that is a good question, Ms. Bergner. The property owners are here this evening, so they can answer specific questions. But the property is located on Liberty Lane. Again, a historic cemetery. I do have some photos.
Thanks, Jamie.
So Jamie, what are they building over there?
So this project was subject of site plan approval. They are building some new greenhouses and bringing power to those greenhouses. In developing that site, they did have a plan to install underground utilities from a specific utility pole. A new pole was set in a new location, and they employed an electrician to install those underground utilities. With the setting of the new pole, I want to say they mistakenly went, path of least resistance, which was a straight line between point A and point B, neglecting the fact that that new line was within 25 feet of the historic cemetery. In actuality, the pole that was set by the utility company is 25 feet from the edge of the kind of perimeter and boundaries of the cemetery. And if you look at your photo, you will see the granite posts delineating what people would assume is the edge of the cemetery.
Oh, yeah.
But in some instances, you have a family plot or a local plot, and there are others who may have been community members who may not have been a relation to the family, or someone who was traversing the community and had an untimely death that may be buried outside of a typical family plot. That's why the state has, in essence, the 25-foot rule. This trench was constructed within 25 feet of that perimeter. As Amy Gomes has advised you, that triggered a permit requirement, both being weighed in by the historic district and ultimately action by the town council. Action by the town council requires a public hearing notice. That's why we have the notice of hearing request before you tonight. And again, it's to supply power to the greenhouses, to go back to your question.
So on Google, it's much better and much clearer than these pictures, but is the trench on the left or the right of the cemetery?
It is on the east side, so if you're looking to the interior of the property, the left.
Okay.
Mr. President, motion to approve item 10G.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, any discussion? Good.
Just a couple of things. One, this has come in as an as-built, and thank you for the pictures. It looks fairly straightforward and easy. Has the trench now been filled in?
No, in working with the building department and the planning department, the landowner has ceased all activity on the site associated with the trench. They're working with both local permitting and state review.
So until we take action?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
Just, I guess, a question about whether or not, and I addressed this to Amy before the meeting started tonight, whether or not the town should or could have any concerns about any liabilities with respect to the trench.
I don't know if this is something where, first of all, these kind of applications aren't common. The requirement to go through this process is usually a deterrent to going near the cemetery, and that's kind of the intent, I would think. I think if the council approves this after the public hearing, the council could require indemnification from the property owner. But I think to some extent, the process itself reduces, if not eliminates, liability to the town. In other words, this process is supposed to ensure that the cemetery is protected.
Right. And that's why I was asking Jamie about the as-built nature of it would seem to reduce or eliminate any liability. And this is only for order of notice anyway.
Right.
And it seems, Jamie, that the applicant is, let's see, this Kingston Farm Properties LLC has been working with you and being really compliant?
Yes. The landowner, Heather, is here this evening, has been in constant contact with our office with regards to update and process and how to move this forward, and doing that in a very humble, cooperative manner.
Yeah, seems like a no-brainer to me, so we can get these folks home.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right, that passes, and we'll see you at the public hearing.
When is, do they know? Do you know?
We'll let you know.
Oh. April.
All right. Luke Murray, come on up. Well, Luke, we'll try to take H and I as a block here since they relate to each other. Or they relate to the same subject matter.
They do. Both the Perryville EMS station, which I'm happy to report is moving along pretty swiftly at this point. So up for your consideration first is a town council action to waive the fees related to building permits and other permits related to the project, soil and erosion control permits, any additional applications, et cetera, that would be on the town side. So when we issued the RFP for a contractor, we said that these would be waived. In further review, the fee schedule adopted by the town council says that there's conflicting language. I identified this and brought it to the attention of the building official, but the way it reads is that in construction above $200,000 requires a waiver of any fees by town council. It goes then on to discuss the building permit fees, which above $200,000. So there's a little bit of conflicting language there. However, in an abundance of caution, I'm bringing this to council so we can waive those fees, because it's only going to it's a circular motion. If it was coming from an outside source, most of the grant funds are going into the other construction. We are supporting a little bit of the project through EMS billing, so there's no benefit to having it paid out of others and into our permit fees, if that makes sense.
All right, any questions on that one?
No. Do you want a motion to approve?
No, we'll move right to the next one. We'll take them in a block.
Okay. I know, but I didn't know if you want a separate motion.
Okay. So the second item for consideration is an award of contract to Dodell Engineering in the amount of $13,000. Dodell has already done quite a bit of engineering on the site. I will say Mark Dodell, it's a very small firm, very reasonably priced, has done an outstanding job, willing to go to the extra mile throughout this process, has done a great job designing the septic and all the other engineering elements of the project. We're essentially required to keep him on. We could go outside if we went to an RFQ, went through the whole process. For the amount of contract and the work he's done to date, I'd recommend we do not. He has to sign off on what they call 128s, basically saying that he'll go out, inspect the project, and do the oversight of the OWTS and any of the permitted elements of the project. So this is for construction administration. If you don't mind, I'll take the opportunity to kind of give you an update since it was on the manager's report anyway. So relating to this, I was out on the site on Friday with Mark, and he started laying it out and setting the boundary between the land trust land and the project site. So I wanted to make sure that was delineated, and I required the contractor to put a fence up along there to make sure that there was no ambiguity on that line and there was no crossover on that line. There is a grading easement, but I don't want, when we're ready, we'll get into that easement, but for the time being, we're not. We're on track as far as the start of construction. Actually, they've already started making motion, so you'll start seeing activity this week. I required the OPM to put out, to actually physically go to the immediate neighbors, give them a letter with her contact information, and let them know what's going on. Let them know that backhoes are going to start showing up, that a couple of trees will be coming down, and we're moving action. In addition, the reason I brought the website up is there's quite a bit of good information on here about the budget, the facility, the funding, schedule, etc. This is going to get updated, and it'll be updated monthly. I'm going to put a header on this tomorrow. That'll be project updates. So, and we'll push those out through social media. So that way, every month, people are getting an update on where we are.
Great.
As it sits right now, the schedule is approximately one year from today, we should have that EMS station delivered. Hopefully sooner, but that's the schedule. 1 year is what the contractor has laid out. We reviewed schedule on Friday, and the work starts literally this week. We're going to start ramping up on site.
All right, thank you, Luke. Any questions? All right, do I hear a motion on H and I?
Motion to approve items H and I, 10H and I.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right, that passes. Thank you, Luke. It's going to bring us to item J. Jim, going to go to you on this one.
Yes, sir. I spoke to the solicitor. This is for a resolution authorizing me as the town manager to sign the state and local permitting for the development review documents of the South Kingston High School and the athletic facility. Speaking to Mike Ursillo, I confirmed with him that the town manager, so the choice would be the town manager signs this or the school superintendent. The town manager should be signing this because it's town property and then it's given to the schools to use. So that was his decision, but I wanted to put that on the agenda without me signing it so you're fully aware of the direction we're going.
All right, thank you, Jim.
Motion to approve item 10J.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. It's now going to move us to the manager's report. We already dealt with item A and C. We just have two remaining there.
So we'll go to item D first, since that's the quickest one. Union Studios, we would like to schedule a Union Studios meeting, a special meeting, and Jamie, you have the proposed date of April 24th, is that right? That's a separate night?
That is correct. It's a Thursday.
What date and time, Jamie?
April 24th, be the fourth Thursday of the month.
What time?
You tell me, 6,
What day of the week
6:30?
is that?
It's a Thursday.
All right. Thursday, 7 p.m., April 24th?
If that's what your pleasure is, sure.
I'm cool with that.
Can we do 6:30? I mean, is it hard for you?
6:30 can work for me.
I don't know, 'cause there's a work
Yeah,
session.
6:30 works for me.
Okay.
Yeah, we usually budget 2 hours on something.
All right, 6:30 p.m., Thursday, April 24th.
We'll try and do a hard 6:30 to 8:30.
Can you make sure that you invite the planning board and the EDC, who's been very interested and active in this, and I don't know, any other boards and commissions? Affordable Housing Collaborative, obviously.
And also make sure that this gets out 2 weeks ahead of time on social media, and then 1 week ahead of time, and then 3 days before, and then the week before, because people are going to say to us, no matter how much we do, you didn't publicize this, and people are very interested in it. So, no offense to people unnamed out there, but
We'll work to get this on the town's calendar. We can do a news flash as we get a little bit closer, and we'll push to boards and commissions.
I mean, because I think those are the stakeholders. If you get to the boards and commissions, they also tell their friends, family, neighbors, and get people who are interested. And I know there's a lot of interest on each of the properties.
And just as a quick update, we did have a very good meeting internally between Public Service, Planning, Town Manager's Office, as well as the Recreational Department, and Terry Murphy and her team on the 3 sites, because there are recreational components to all of those. We met as an internal group, and then we followed up last week meeting with Union Studios for a couple hours, going over next steps, going over what everyone's takeaway was from the town council's meeting and workshop, and the direction that came from that. So we look forward to that meeting in April, and thank you for, taking the time out to do it on a special night.
Thank you, Jamie.
The last item will be, we'll go to item B, the summary of reserve funds as requested by Council Member Bergner, which was continued from February 24th. There'll be Brian Sylvia just finishing that up. And thank you, Brian, for, you did this right in the middle of the budget, so it was, you worked the entire weekend doing this, so thank you for doing that, though.
And you're going to get the CIP reserve funds as a future project, right? We talked about it at the last meeting. The capital reserves funds.
That's where we're leaving off right now. So we left off, how I have my notes, we left off completing the permanent funds and picking up on the capital project funds, which begin on page 21. Let me put that.
I don't know.
So first up is Fund 408, which is the Capital Equipment and Replacement Fund. As of June 30th, 24, that had a balance of $2,117,000. This fund is funded by the annual capital improvement program of the town, and this funds the Communications Department, EMS, DPS, Parks and Rec, Senior Services, and Police, Building and Zoning for equipment and vehicle replacement. Currently, $580,000 is unencumbered, and the balance is funding 28 various capital projects from the departments.
So does that balance that's unencumbered, that $580,000, do you sort of track that?
Yes.
Does that increase every year?
It fluctuates. Speaking for some of that, I know 20,000 of that 580 is associated with communications. And I don't know if you recall, but this year is year one of funding for communications new bucket truck.
Right.
That's going to be funded over a 5-year cycle, and obviously prices go up. So that reserve that he has, that communications has of 20,000 of that 580 is, the plan is to use that to offset if there are increases in that bucket truck over the 5 years where we'll be funding that new vehicle.
So the way so then why would it be unencumbered? Because it's actually allocated for something.
Well, as of 6/30/2024, we didn't have a bucket truck project. That's what the intended use of it is now. That's getting, it's going to be part of the next going forward. Because that is a capital project that's beginning to be funded as of 7/1/2025. So that will have a new purpose. But as of this date, that 20,000 was just kind of, so it does change, it does move, yes.
Okay.
The next is Fund 410, the technology improvements. That had a balance of $209,000, and this is funding the capital projects of the IT department, which is fully encumbered, funding 8 various projects. Funding for this fund comes from the annual CIP. Next is the Fair Share Development Fund. That is Fund 402. As of June 30, 2024, that had a balance of $967,000. At a recent meeting, we went over the fact that there was about $1,140,000 in there, which is going to be taken down by the Old Mountain Field project. But again, as of this date, this is what was available in that fund. Next, on page 22, is the Grant Match Reserve, Fund 403. That had a balance as of June 30 of $1 million. This was funded entirely by a year-end transfer of 2023, fiscal year 2023. Currently, there are no funds encumbered of this balance, but in speaking to Luke and several other department heads, there are a number of grants in the hopper, and I think spoken for funds, not necessarily encumbered yet, but we have grants that are in the works that would encumber between $650,000 and $700,000 of these funds. It's still in various points of the process, and they're not encumbered yet, but these funds are being intended for various grants.
Didn't we take something out? Didn't you take something out, Rory, when we did the CIP?
We contemplating applying some of this grant match reserve fund toward the CIP.
That's correct.
How much did we use? Did we use any?
We did. That was for, I want to say, the planning.
Yeah.
I believe we reduced
correct,
planning,
yeah.
and planning was coming out of this. And I believe that was taken down from $150,000 to $100,000 or $75,000. So either $50,000 or $75,000 will be coming out of this as of 7/1.
Okay.
Next is the Library Building Construction Fund, Fund 412. that had a balance of $263,000. This is made up of both the Chaplain Grant funds and the CIP funds for the library, and this is being used for the CLC Learning Center right now. Of the balance currently, there are, all is encumbered except for $70,000, which is currently not encumbered at this time. Next is open space. Open space is funded from a portion of the annual conveyance tax, and that had a balance as of June 30 of $1,441,000. Next on page 23 is the Public Safety Improvement Fund. So this is this is equipment for police and vehicles and equipment. I'm sorry, the Public Safety Improvement Fund is equipment and facilities for police and vehicle equipment and facilities for communications and EMS. And this fund had a balance of $461,000 as of June 30th, of which all are committed to the various projects for those departments. Next is Fund 416, the DPS Office Building Improvement Fund. That had a balance of $236,000, and that is entirely obligated to the highway garage, phase 1 of the highway garage upgrade. Next is the Public Works Improvement Fund, which had a balance of $2.7 million as of June 30th. This fund is, I broke it out for you here. There's a lot going on here. So you got almost $1.4 million committed to various road projects, $560,000 as a reserve for road improvement projects. You have just under $150,000 committed to various bridge, dam, and culvert projects, and $175,000 committed to a reserve for those same bridge, dam, and culvert projects. And finally, $113,000 committed for TM Dale projects, with a reserve for TM Dale projects of $393,000.
What does TMDL mean again?
I had to write that actually down. It is up top because I forget every time. Total maximum daily load. That is one I had to put down. Next is the recreation minor improvements. So this is the improvements to various park projects that are funded via the CIP. This had a balance as of June 30th of $954,000, of which 945 were committed to 15 various projects. And the next is the Guild Renovation Fund, Fund 421, which had a balance of $978,000. This is the remaining balance of the 2022 general obligation bond for the improvements at the Neighborhood Guild. And next is the Recreation Improvement Fund, Fund 422, which had a balance of $85,000. And these are funding two different, this is a fund, capital improvement fund for Marina Park, which is funding two projects at this time. And next, on page 25, the capital improvement fund, Fund 429. We have two school capital improvement funds, and they're too close together. They confuse me all the time. This is 429, and this is the school department. So this is how they'll transfer funds from their operating budget for capital projects, and this is the school department's capital fund. So this is restricted for school capital, and they fund this directly out of their operating budget. Next is the senior center construction fund, which had a balance of $119,000. $100,000 is committed to 5 various projects, with the balance of $19,000 is committed but unobligated at this time. And this is the remaining balance from the construction of the center. Next is the Recreation Center Fund, Fund 423, which had a balance of $219,000 as of June 30th. This fund was, again, similar to the last, was established for the construction of the Recreation Center. And this entire balance is committed to the capital projects of the Rec Center, of which $20,000 is currently obligated for 2 projects. South Road School on page 26. Fund 330 currently has a balance of $320,000. This is from the remaining balance from when the school was originally constructed, and this has been used. We've been taking, Mark would know this better than I, Mark Russo. We take $10,000 to $20,000 out of this every 2 years for annual maintenance that Mark has to do on the building. But that's really all that's been used for this in the last couple of years. Next is the Town Hall Improvement Fund. That is the capital projects that are approved within the CIP for improvements to Town Hall. And that is, the entire balance is obligated to 9 various capital projects within Town Hall currently. And here's the other school improvement fund, 428. This is actually a town fund. So these are town funds, which had a balance of 170,000. This, I believe, was originally established, I know it was used last time, and I think it was established before the last, I don't know if it was the initial push for a new high school several years back. This fund was used before and it was used for a few projects before we actually had a school project. Before the school project was passed and we needed funding source on some things, this was used as a funding source. But this is a town-funded school capital project fund. And finally, on the capital project funds, we have the Village Infrastructure Fund. This is also funded out of the conveyance tax?
No,
No.
this comes out of the budget.
Yes, this is, I'm saying that, and even as I'm saying that, this is part of, yeah, this is conveyance. This is a piece that goes to open space, and then so much goes to, it used to. Well, that was stopped within the current fiscal year, but that's where the funding initially came from. A portion of this a portion of conveyance went to open space, and then it was parsed out to affordable housing and village infrastructure. The council took action within the current fiscal year to stop that in this year. And then finally, the last fund for capital projects is the wastewater construction fund. And this is funded by the ratepayers of the wastewater fund. And this is to have funds readily available when expansion or improvements are needed at the facility.
Before you go on,
Yes.
so the Village Infrastructure Fund,
Mhm.
you said the entire balance of funding is committed to what?
To village infrastructure programs, I'm not sure. I don't think we've expended any funds.
Well, what is it committed to? Because I just think that we're spending a couple $100,000 of ARPA money to do the fencing and the benches. What's this for?
Perhaps a deeper dive into this?
Yes, please. Yeah, I have the numbers, but in terms of questions like that, I think we've had a small expense. We would have had to have something, because I think 10,000 was going in a year. So for it to not have an interval of 10,000 in the balance, we've spent something.
Right.
So
I knew it was, the reason why I was confused that it was not with the conveyance fees, because I feel like it was a flat transfer of 10,000 was going to go to that fund. But then I look at it too and go, what was that?
Yeah.
$1,500.
Yeah, it was a 10,000 annual balance, so I'll check on that. Yep.
And then what is it committed to? Because the way that it's written, it says, provide matching funds for neighborhood associations and nonprofit organizations for infrastructure projects that meet capital investment standards.
I'd have to.
Here's a question. If the money has been committed,
To that fund, yes.
council action would be needed to uncommit it?
Yes.
So it's possible it's just been sitting there.
Yep.
You'd have to do a deeper dive to get a better understanding and sort of
I
report
think
back to us.
Luke can give you an explanation right now for you.
So this fund was set up a few years ago under the former town manager, Rob Zarnetsky, and it was an idea you had to partition some village infrastructure because we have a few organizations that could use it. It has sat there, you are correct. I will say that this has been discussed among the committee because we also have the Main Streets grant that's coming up, so to maybe leverage some of that money to a larger project that we're talking about at High Street and whatnot. So I just want to put that out there that we have had some discussions on potential use. That doesn't mean the council couldn't. So as far as committed, it's committed to some type of village activity. So if you wanted to reallocate that money, you'd have to take action to uncommit it for that potential obligation, to open it up as a kind of undesignated reserve, which you can certainly do. But the intent, and that's why the $200,000 was really partitioned for the site furnishings. That money was looked at as kind of leveraging the Main Streets grant.
Okay.
Is the Main Streets grant the one that we talked about on the phone?
It is. So we got $350,000 last year that we still have to expend, and we're going over projects that we want to possibly at the corner of High Street and Main Street, right there. So, but it's such a minute amount of money in the scheme of things, this amount, that we should probably hold on to it where it is in case that $350,000 doesn't meet what we're looking to build in town. So, and he's right, all this money that we have that's like in little pieces like this, it's used to leverage the grants we could get that we've applied for. But to answer your question, we got that grant last year, so this year we'd probably be ineligible for another one. We didn't even spend that one yet.
Correct, but I agree that it's going to leverage grants, but like, we have the village infrastructure grant, then we have the grant reserve fund, we have multiple little things to do the same thing.
Once again, we have $350,000 to do a major project in town that we're considering before we bring it to the council. I think it's gonna go over the $350.
Okay.
This is a perfect example of taking this money and putting it on that, if it does, which it probably will.
Okay.
So that project is the one that you're going to be bringing up to us soon, right? The Main Street project?
As soon as we can decide on what this best use of this money that will get us our best bang for the dollar, but of course, we bring it to the council to spend.
Okay.
Sorry, Brian.
That's okay.
Thank you, Jim.
And I did add, after our last meeting, after our talk, I added enterprise funds. So these are funds that are business-type activities, and they are funded by the ratepayers for these services. So this is, again, the wastewater fund, solid waste fund, and the water fund. Wastewater fund is Fund 704. As of June 30, 2024, had an unassigned balance of $13.7 million. The solid waste fund, as of same date, Fund 706, had a balance of $112,679, and the water fund, Fund 702, had a balance of $4.9 million.
All right, is that all? Is that everyone?
That's everyone.
All right.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Brian. That is now going to move us to communications. Item 13A is an email dated March 4, 2025 from Stephen J. Elmasian, co-chair, Armenian National Committee of Rhode Island, requesting that the town fly the Armenian flag on April 24th to commemorate Armenian Genocide Remembrance Day. Do I hear a motion on this one?
So I don't think we can fly the flag. We talk about this every time, and Mike Garcillo goes, well, you can only fly this on the flagpole.
Amy Goins, go ahead.
If the council wants advice on this, I'm going to send you a memo that will be privileged.
All right. So perhaps a motion to refer to the solicitor's office.
Mm-hmm.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, it's going to move us to item B, a letter dated March 5, 2025 from Team Sunshine Construction on behalf of Carlene Kelly, property owner of 525 South Road, requesting town council guidance and/or approval to remove deceased and rotted trees at the abutting historic cemetery. So I don't believe the person who sent the communication is here today, but perhaps, Jim, you want to give a little background on this?
Yes. We're still trying to wade through this one and find out what the motivation is on it. So with that being said, we'd like to look into it more before we get back to you.
Perhaps a motion to refer to the manager's office?
Motion to...
And council.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Well, just so the council's aware on this one, the statute is a little bit different, but this one also requires an ad in the paper after the council approves the petition. So the historic cemetery order of notice that you approve, the ad has to be placed before the public hearing. This statute, when someone wants to petition to maintain neglected burial grounds, the statute says upon approval of the petition, then the council has to put an ad in the paper notifying the general public to come forward with any objections. There is no explanation of what happens if someone does come up with objections, but maybe we'll cross that bridge when and if we get there.
All right.
I have the same concerns that we discussed with the other one too, is we approve somebody doing this work. What happens if the tree comes down the wrong way, knocks over an historic stone wall, or breaks up gravestones? Some assurances to the town that it's going to be repaired or indemnified, I think would need to be part of it.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right, that passes. It's going to bring us to item C, an email dated March 5, 2025 from Deidre Murphy, Boys and Girls Club of Newport County, requesting their application for Human Services and Outside Agency fiscal year 25-26 grant funding be considered. Deidre, if you're here, come on up.
Oh, wow.
We appreciate you sticking it out. We understand that there was some sort of, issue as to whether it was sent timely or received, but we believe it was sent, at least from your position. But forget about the timing issue. We're going to use this time here to allow you to present your pitch as to why, you are requesting the monies, what it's going to be used for. So go ahead.
Great, okay. The Boys and Girls Clubs of Newport County is a youth development agency. We, in addition to having services in Newport County, we also have a camp, Camp Grosvenor in Saunderstown, where we bring about 200 kids every summer to the camp. The camp offers the traditional camping activities, and it also orders a great deal of enrichment programs. Our campers are those in need. 95% are low income, come from low income households. So for years, we've had a relationship with South Kingstown to bring South Kingstown campers to the camp, and have asked for civic appropriations to support that. We have always, last year we had about 12 kids come to camp, depending on how many kids apply and how many qualify and how many weeks they come to camp. That's how we decide. It could be more kids next year or this summer. It could be, fewer, but they stay longer. So we're asking for funding. Our usual funding request is $20,000, but last year, our person he's no longer with us, but who was managing the grant was unable to use all of the funding. And so there's a $2,800 carryover. So we're asking for the amount that I put in the application, $17,000 and change, for South Kingstown children in need to be able to attend camp this summer.
All right, thank you. Any questions? All right, thank you. We are going to take up the preliminary budget adoption on March 17th, so we'll consider it as part of our deliberations on that night. Thank you for coming.
Mr. President, could we just close the loop on this rotted trees in the cemetery thing so we can get that off our plate? So we've had several staff go out there and look at that cemetery, and there is no owner of record for that parcel of land on South Road and Allen Ave. And Park Superintendent Rex Everly, who's a licensed arborist, went out there, did a site visit, and identified 2 trees that he agrees are dead or in poor condition and pose a threat to the abutting property. He recommends those 2 trees be removed at the owner's expense, but that any other trees, if the abutter wishes to remove, should be inspected by a professional, reputable tree service. The bottom line is we wouldn't need council, because there's no owner of record, the council approve that we give them that recommendation, that they can't take down those 2 trees. That's the staff recommendation.
Okay.
So it was kind of a little jumbled. There is no owner of record on the property. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's correct.
So who's going to take down the trees at the owner's expense?
At the abutters.
Well, the abutter.
The abutter's expense.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So the trees pose a danger to the abutter.
So
I think what the manager is saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, but I think you're saying we don't need to go through this process,
Yeah.
that they can just
Once the council says, yes, you can do this, they can do it. That's what I was just told because it's a historic cemetery.
And we know the trees are dead?
Should we look into this further, or should we authorize this now?
No, we had staff go out there, and that's his recommendation. I can read it exactly again.
From the tree warden?
If Rex says it's dead, it's
If
dead.
the tree warden said it's dead, then I have no problem giving authorization, but before that...
Well, we have a licensed arborist, that...
There's Rex.
On staff, Rex.
That's what I mean, right.
Are there any legal problems to just authorizing this at this time?
the statute that the applicant cited, I'm not sure it applies. Or maybe they asked for more than they needed to. If the request to the council is just, can we remove these trees? And staff recommends, yes, you can go ahead and approve that limited request. But if you're trying to make approve a request under the statute 45-512, that requires, as I said, post hoc newspaper notice. So I think this statute is more intended for someone who wants to do ongoing, continuing maintenance of a cemetery where the owner is unknown, or, you know, a cemetery that's been abandoned. If this is just a limited request to cut those trees, I think the council can approve it not under this statute.
All right. I think I'm okay authorizing this. How do we feel?
Yeah.
It's 2 trees, and
Yeah,
they're
I
gonna
mean,
get...
these 2 trees pose a threat to the abutter's property. He's willing to take them down at his expense. Common sense has to prevail. We
And
just
they're
gotta
gonna
let him.
hire a
All right.
licensed whatever.
I am a tree lover.
Well, we all
Not
are,
these
but
trees.
these are dead.
As long as
All
they're
right.
dead.
Motion
Dead,
to
take 'em
allow the residents to use, the abutters and Carleen Kelly to remove 2 dead trees from her property,
Seconded.
from the...
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Does that work? That motion
Yes.
accomplishes what we're
Yes.
looking for here?
That's exactly.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. It's going to move us to item 14A, appointments.
I would like to appoint Barry Gross for reappointment to the Waterfront Commission.
Do you want to do a list, Jay? It's just
Sure.
much quicker.
Do you want me to start
Start at the top.
from the top? All right, so I make a motion to approve Ken Monroe for reappointment to the Assessment Board of Review, Joshua...
Wait. He's got to recuse from that, so...
I have to recuse on that one.
So maybe all of them except the Ken Monroe.
Okay.
So, and can you
Which-
also add in reappoint Brad Hevenor, because we left him off. We didn't
Oh,
get
yeah,
to
yeah.
him.
Brad
Yeah.
Kavanaugh. Okay,
Sorry. We're going to try to do it all at once, Nicole.
we all ready?
Yeah.
Make a motion to reappoint Brad Kavanaugh. Make a motion to appoint Joshua Saunders to the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. Kate Shorrock for the Conservation Commission. Michael Gagas for reappointment to the Economic Development Committee. Susan Marcus for reappointment to the Economic Development Committee. And Barry Gross for reappointment to the Waterfront Advisory Commission.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes.
And make a motion to approve Ken Monroe for reappointment to the Assessment Board of Review.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes 3-0 with 1 recusal.
Thank you, Mr. Veep.
Motion to adjourn?
All right, we
Second.
got a motion to adjourn. We have a second. Nope, we can't adjourn yet.
Oh, wait, we have a couple things.
We gotta take up item B.
What is that?
14B.
Motion to approve item 14B.
I don't know what it is.
It's promoting William McDonald from Alternative 2 to Alternative 1 on the Zoning Board of Review for a term to expire March 2025, as further described in the memorandum from the building official to the town manager dated February 21st, 2025, and entitled Zoning Board of Review Member Appointment.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. Now we got item C here. Terry Murphy, what do we got on this?
Get all our steps in.
This is a recommendation for appointment of the 12 individuals listed. You might not have the memo in front of you.
Oh, yes, we did. I did see that.
Applicants for the South Kingstown 250th United States Anniversary Committee. Do you need the names?
Yes.
We'd prefer the names.
I didn't know if you had them up there. Kenneth Burke, John Desmond, Karen Desmond, Sharon Henderson, Beth LeConte, Mark Phillips, Kate Sullivan, Joe Patrick, Russell Denoto, Patricia Keefe, Pierre Marek, and William Boardman. They are all residents of the town of South Kingstown. Many were on the 300th Anniversary Committee. They applied to
Wait,
be
Terry,
on.
I think you said
I thought, wasn't Sean Johnson one of those people too?
And Lauren Fogarty?
No, they did not apply.
Okay.
We do not have applications. It's still a rolling application period. and there's an application link on the town website. It's been put out. They're
I did
just
see
haven't
that,
gone
I
through
did
the
see they went to
process.
the State House. Our emails are not, they're not, we're not told about it in time to respond.
All right. So do I hear a motion to appoint those persons
So
listed by
moved.
Terry
Second.
Murphy to this committee? We got a motion second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
We have a motion second. Any discussion?
Good night, South Kingstown.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, this meeting is over. See you next time.